Southampton Planning Board in accordance with the Governor's Executive Order 202.1 and its related extensions until further notice. All of the board's meetings will be held remotely via video conference, so we ask the public to continually check the town's websites for updates and information. Phil, do we have a roll call?
Certainly. Chair LaFaro.
Present.
Vice Chair Finnerty.
Present.
Secretary is gratefully here. Board Member Burke.
Here.
Board Member Zuccarelli.
You're muted, John.
Hello,
John, you're muted.
I can hear you.
No, Zuccarelli's muted.
Oh,
Oh, and here's Jay. There
Um,
you
Hi,
are.
everybody.
today is the 28th, not the
Yes.
26th.
28, sorry. Thank you.
Board Member Long.
I read.
Board Member Blaney.
President, I guess.
We are all here and welcome to Supervisor Schneiderman.
Welcome, Jay.
Hello, everybody.
How are you?
Good to see you all.
Good to see you too. Can you join us for a pledge? And
Of
then we'll
course
do
I
the
can.
proclamation. I
100%.
pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the
United States
of America and to the republic
Republic
For which
for
is
which
which
it stands,
stands
one
one
nation,
nation
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty,
and
and
justice
justice for all.
for all. Okay. So Jay, it's all yours to.
All right. Well,
we're
thank
here
you.
to-
Thank
to
you,
pledge
Chairwoman
You're welcome.
and Vice Chair Finnerty. It's good to see everybody. Even if it's in cyberspace, I wish I could be present with you all today in one place. We'll get there. It's just taking an awfully long time. But I don't typically appear at your planning board meetings, but today is a special occasion. So today we are honoring a 22-year member of your board, John Blaney. Hi, John. Good to see you.
Hello.
Thank you for your decades of service to the planning board and of course to all of your community involvement as well. And it's a great privilege to be able to join you guys today. And I have with me a proclamation, which I can't pass through the Zoom window, unfortunately, but I am going to read it so that I can fully embarrass John. So this is it says, whereas the town of Southampton has received national and regional recognition for its commitment to comprehensive planning, open space preservation, and natural resource protection, due to the contributions of its hardworking and conscientious citizens, and whereas service to one's community is central to the American character and a fundamental expression of responsible citizenship. Every day our town is enriched by the efforts of special individuals who labor together for the common good. Among these individuals is a 50+ year resident of West Hampton Beach, John Blaney. As a volunteer, businessman, and much more, he has proven himself a true servant and personal participant in his community. Often, his many charitable and philanthropic deeds are undertaken anonymously and always for others in need. And whereas a graduate of St. John University, John distinguished himself as a real estate broker and appraiser for over 40 years. As a successful real estate developer in the 1970s, he made deals that preserved a large amount of open space north of Montauk Highway in Quogue and East Quogue. John created the first high-class disco. That sounds like an oxymoron to me, a high-class disco. I'm sorry, but that's what it says here. Created the first high-class disco known as Scarlett's Disco, formerly located in West Hampton Beach. And long before Studio 54 in Marrakesh. He is also a longtime member of the Rotary Club of West Hampton, as well as a contributing designer and namesake of the Blaney musical teddy bear, which I have no idea, John, what the heck that is. The Blaney, it's in here though, so it must be true. What is the Blaney musical teddy bear?
Are you seriously?
What is that? The Blaney musical teddy bear?
A teddy bear that plays selections of music and you can program it and we used it to help people be in touch with music the way they may not be able to touch it through other parts of our town.
People with
That's great.
Alzheimer's.
Where is the teddy bear now?
There it is.
Oh, there it is. Is that it?
I have it in my office.
I see it. It's right next to you. All right, continuing on. Whereas in the realm of local government, John served as a member of the Industrial and Commercial Incentive Board from 1993 to 1995 and was appointed to the Southampton Town Planning Board on January 4th, 1999. In the 22 years since, John has reviewed site plans, subdivisions, old filed maps, aquifer protection overlay district matters, and made recommendations to the town board. In doing so, he offered valuable input into the planning process and helped preserve the town's unique and special character. Friends and co-workers report how much he has loved all the people he worked with and always made decisions based on the merits rather than on politics. John's most memorable applications are the golf at the bridge, Sabonic Golf Course, and the Two Trees Horse Farm. John served 2 stretches as Planning Board Vice Chairman from 2004 to 2007, and again from 2011 through 2018. During the times he acted as chairman, he consistently set or broke his own records for the shortest meetings ever. And whereas in a fitting tribute to his many years of service, colleagues have chosen to honor John with celebratory festivities, I'm not sure what those are here, and to publicly thank him for his longevity, work, and friendship over the years. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town board of the town of Southampton hereby joins with an appreciative community in presenting this proclamation to John Blaney, extending him our congratulations, thanks, and best wishes. He is an individual truly worthy of the day's honor, and may he enjoy health and happiness in the many years to come. And it's signed by all 5 of us on the town board. So this is for you, John.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank
Let
you.
me just say, on a personal note, you will be missed. You'll get to escape some of the controversy at the planning board level. You know, I'm sure you'll stay involved in the community. With a record like that and a personal history of giving so much of yourself to your community, I can't imagine that you're gonna disappear from the public eye. So I hope you stay involved, and particularly in local government. And on behalf of the town, thank you for 22 years on the planning board and everything you do for the town of Southampton.
Thank you very much. I'm very touched.
So how do I get this to you?
You write a check.
John, yeah, go, John. You want to say a few words?
I could try.
Or you could dance.
I never imagined that when who was the appraiser before Heaney? I mean the town supervisor.
Oh, before who? Before me?
Theo, right?
No, Anna Throne-Holtz, and then Linda Cabot, and then Skip Heaney, and then Vince Canuzio, and then
Fred Thiel.
Fred Thiel.
That's pretty interesting group of people. I'm somewhat speechless, which is anyone that knows me, it's unusual for me. But I can honestly say, looking back, some of the things you talked about, who ever thought that a thing called Zoom was going to exist? That this has taken everything and mixed it all up and to put it together. And only that the board is a great bunch of people and they work at things. We too shall survive this. And so what's that I have to say?
We'll miss you, John.
Yeah, how about some of the other planning board members or staff? You want to say a few words about John before I have to go back to my town board meeting?
Thank you, John. I think that Dennis and I are have been with Blaney the longest, but Dennis the longest.
Yeah, I've been here the longest. John, take me with you. No.
We tried that once, it didn't work.
Yeah, it was really an honor, a pleasure to work with you, John. It's
Thank you. Tony.
you'll truly be missed, and we'll stay in touch, hopefully.
What could be better than to be missed?
You'll be missed, John. And over all the years, I certainly remember you sat next to me most of those years,
Yes.
and we'd kind of poke each other. But one particular time, oh, I always will remember it, when we were examining some catering application where they had, there were not going to be any waiters or any people. And you looked at me and you said, I know about that business. Are they crazy? You knew the truth of the matter. And that was always good, when you have real experience with it. So we'll miss you, John.
Thank you.
Now it's your time to take a little break.
I'll figure something to get right back in. But thank you for the suggestion. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Anybody else want to just personally say goodbye to John?
John,
The planners feel the same way. I mean, I submitted to you initially in '99, and you were always great in terms of having a quip on the side. And the planners are thankful for all your meetings that were very short for some reason. Did you tell the applicants not to come or something? I'm not quite sure how that
Lucky
happened.
agenda.
But we always appreciated it.
I would just like to say one thing real quick. John Blaney won't remember this, but prior to John starting on the planning board in the town of Southampton, I was working for the town of East Hampton. I was young, 24 years old. John Blaney came to East Hampton Town Hall and met with me and wanted to sit in on a planning board meeting because he was interested to see how they operate because he was about to go on his new planning board membership here. And I always remember that when I came to the town, then I had met John Blaney 20 something years ago prior to coming sitting on this board and have known him ever since. So I just want to wish him luck, and we'll see him soon.
Were you helped by the East Hampton experience?
What's that?
Were you helped by the East Hampton experience?
Which one of us?
That's right, Jay.
Jay, you were there
No,
too.
I guess
Jay was there as well.
Anthony, we have similar roots over there. So,
Yeah, we do.
but I want to hear about the discotheque. Joe Blaney. I missed that
A
one.
lot of late evenings.
I was living out in Montauk. I didn't get to Blaney's disco. So,
Carlos, infamous.
oh yeah,
Carlos.
Scarlett.
John, I also just wanted to say it's been a great honor working with you, and always appreciate your input, and we will really miss you.
Thank you.
and John is one of the newer members of the board. All right.
So,
One of the newer members.
One of
What
the more shy members. So,
Yes, and one of the more shy and unspoken people. But I've got to say something, John. You were always at every meeting a breath of fresh air and a breath of common sense. And sometimes I'd like to look over to you and your face told a hell of a lot more than any of our words could ever say. So I'm going to miss not seeing you on the board. Thank you.
thank you.
And as the newest member, I got to spend the last several years with John sitting next to me and had the pleasure of climbing over him when I needed to, right? But so I'm going to miss you, and I'm going to miss climbing around your chair.
Gloria must remember having to be very aggressive if you wanted to get any candy bars.
Oh yes, he would eat all the candy and I wouldn't get any.
Thanks, John.
Well, hopefully we'll be back to those days in person in the town boardroom.
John, I'll miss you and our discussions on why St. John's University can't field a basketball team.
All right, well, they won last night, so there's always hope.
There are accidents that occur too.
You know, when you grow up, you live with St. John's and with the Mets and the Giants and the Jets. And you have a whole life that's got nothing to do with anything but watching sports. So I hope to continue that. It was
Great. Great.
And I forget, yes, St. John's has a pretty good team this year. So we'll see what happens. And also, I have to personally thank Ellen Worth for helping me with my computer knowledge. And thank God, because I am so bad at it and still so. And she's really only slapped me in the head 10 or 15 times. So
Thank you very much.
she's the one wants to get out now.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you. Thank you. Kisses to everybody. See
Okay,
you in town.
thank you, John.
Get me a
Thank
And
you,
they'll
John.
they'll get the proclamation to you.
Yeah, we're gonna get this to you, so.
We'll get it to you.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Thank you, Jay, for doing it. We
Thanks,
appreciate
Jay.
it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all for your service.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
We'll move forward.
All right, take care,
Thanks.
everybody.
Bye.
Stay well, stay safe.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Blaney. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, John.
Bye, John.
Hi, John.
Okay, so we've done the pledge, so let me read the language that I have to. Correcting the date of today's meeting is January 28th, 2021. We have a full agenda posted on the town's website for today's meeting. The town's planning staff, as well as applicants and their representatives, will be participating via Zoom webinar, which is being moderated by CTV. Charles Certain will be muting and holding the speakers in a virtual waiting room until it's their time to give testimony before the board. A reminder that applicants and their agents should state their name and address for the record. As is typical, there are no public comments allowed during the daytime meetings. The link to participate in this meeting via Zoom can be found on the town's website. This meeting is also being live streamed on the town's website on the town clerk's meeting portal. If you're having difficulty accessing the meeting, please visit the town clerk's meeting portal and click on the instructions link. Board members who must recuse themselves from any application will state so on the record and will be removed from the meeting until the end of the discussion and vote on the application. Finally, in accordance with the governor's orders, this meeting will be recorded and transcribed at a later date and will be made available to the public. Just as a reminder, there is no public portion this evening. We have only the day session. And on February 11th, which is our next meeting, we will have a new board member appointed. That's Craig Canalanoto. So we will then proceed with another full board. Okay, so the agenda,
Minutes?
sorry, Phil, the minutes. If you have minutes,
We do. We have one set for November 19th.
okay, motion to accept. By Dennis, second by Robin, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor. Do I have to say one vacancy, Kathleen, or just 6 in favor? That's the-
Yeah, you can say one absent. I guess absent, he's formally appointed, so you could say that.
Okay. 6 in favor, 1 absent. So let me close the day session. Matthew, is your applicant here for and open the work session?
She is here.
The
She's on the-
property of Kim Lester.
We'll share the screen and give you guys a brief intro, and I'll let
Thanks.
Susanna explain what's going on. Let's see if I can get this. Everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a work session to discuss. It'll be a site plan and special exception application for dry off-season boat storage on this parcel at 17 Allenson Lane. It's about 55,000 square feet. Contains a pre-existing single-family residence, it's in the RWB, New York State Archaeological Sensitive Area, in proximity to town regulated wetlands. I do have a survey here that just shows they want to do off-season boat storage in this area in the front. Some issue that we see off the back is that, there's already one use on the property in RWB. It's one use per 40,000 square feet, so it would need a variance. And I'll turn it over to Susanna.
Hi. Can everyone hear me okay?
Fine, yes.
Okay, good. So the property is owned by Kim Lester. He inherited the property from his grandfather in 1969. And at that time, the taxes were about $100 on the property. Now they're over $11,000 per year. So they're seeking to supplement the income for this property by storing boats in the off season. We are here today to get some feedback and a general impression from the board, because in order to enact this plan, they would have to get a zoning variance, as Matt mentioned, and then come back to you for site plan approval and a special exception use. So, and wetlands review as well. So before going down that long road, we wanted to get some feedback. So we're proposing that the storage area would be about 12,000 square feet. It would be set back 100 feet from the wetlands line, 50 feet from the residential properties on the northern property line, and 20 feet from the road and 20 feet from the southerly property line. That property is a multi-use property. I believe it's motel and marina on the certificate of occupancy. If you look at the, yep, that right there, there are a couple residences across the street. But the area is resort waterfront business. And if you look across the water, there's motel, which has a marina as part of that, as well as 4 marinas to the south of that. So it is an area that is mixed, and there's a lot of marina and boat type activity going on. So we would try to screen the boat storage area as much as possible. There's already a pretty good evergreen hedge along the street side and the south side of the property. And on the north, there's a stockade fence and quite a bit of greenery there too. The homeowner's willing to augment the screening if necessary. And I anticipate, I did a couple of sketches. I don't know, can I share my screen?
Yes, you may.
Okay. Can you see that? That's my, I did just a couple of layouts. I don't know if you can see that with the boats actually laid out. This is just cut and paste. This is boats that are about 23 feet long. This is 24 boats on the site. Another layout with slightly larger boats. This is 22 boats that are ranging between 23 and 25 feet in length. So I think the maximum number of boats would probably be about 30 if you had some smaller boats. So that's the gist of it. There is an existing house there. It's less than 800 square feet. It was built around 1900. And this area where we would be storing the boats is just nice and flat. It's an unkept lawn area right now, and pretty open. So it'd be pretty straightforward. So I really just wanted to get some feedback from the board, get your thoughts, and before we proceed with this lengthy and expensive permit process, to see if there's any changes that you would like to see, or if you have reservations about the project in general.
Well, one
Or
thing we want to
questions.
make sure is we get input from either the fire district or the fire marshal. If you go back to the sketch, you want to make sure that you can get, they may have specific requirements of spacing of the boats to get emergency equipment, you know, if there's an incident. So I think it would be good to get that input early, you know.
Okay.
So is this one level, Susanna?
Yes, these would just be parked on trailers in the yard, just on the ground.
And what is your route to get them to this dug canal? You're going to have to go through the wetlands?
Oh, no, there wouldn't be water access. This would just be for storage.
Just straight storage.
Right.
Essentially a boatyard. Matt was sent along the chapter 330 of zoning, 330-126, which is boatyard.
Mhm.
What it says in D of 130, of 330-126, in addition, all the requirements listed for the marina shall apply to a boatyard, and they're extensive. Have you gone over those?
I have not specifically.
Okay, well, there are 6 requirements. A marina for private profit, which applies to a boatyard. Matt, are you around? Are you there?
Yeah, I can pull it up. Susanna, if you let me just exit so you can share the screen again.
Okay.
And I'll just pull it up so everyone's familiar with what the requirements are. Yeah, so this would be a boatyard. So, all minor and major repairs to recreational boats and commercial fishing may be provided in such a repair services. Not deemed incompatible with the use of adjoining properties. Outdoor storage of boats may be permitted. Just gives some, commercial fishing, dockage, warehouse, outdoor storage uses may be permitted. And then everything for marina would also apply to boatyard, I think, as you do it. It is a special exception, so these requirements would have to be met as part of the site plan.
Mhm.
That's pretty much it.
So,
The major issue is the 2 uses on the property.
Right. I don't think we would be proposing to do any boat repair
Yeah.
at the site.
Yeah, and that's something the board could condition. If on a case by case thing, that's what they say. This is going to only be for dry storage, boats on trailers, no repair, no washing, no anything like that, no detailing.
Right. We wouldn't have a fueling facility. We
Yeah.
wouldn't have water access. This would be purely storage.
Is,
They don't have interest in running a business beyond just renting the space.
is the house rented?
I believe so, yes.
And where is the access? Would that be alongside the boat storage?
There is they've just moved the driveway over, actually. There is a gravel driveway that goes straight in from the road to the house.
Okay, I can see that now. Thank you.
And that's where they would bring in the boats as well. There would be a gate in the fenced storage area to come in that way.
Matt, would there be any requirement for public comment on this, the neighbors, whatnot?
Absolutely, yeah. No, this would go through full site plan and special exception review. Public hearings, both with the ZBA and with the planning board.
Is there a residence directly to the north
To the north, yes.
and across the street?
Yeah, it looks like there's a residence here, across the street as well.
Right.
The 2 residences that adjoin to the north, one is closer to the house and would not be looking directly at the boat storage. The other one there's quite a bit of screening, natural screening. The backyard is wooded of that lot. So there is some protection. And we could add to that as well.
Yeah, it's really the 2 straight across the street.
Getting back to 330-137, there are quite a few requirements that it sounds to me like you probably would not be interested in doing, but that the code requires them. And that includes restrooms, disposal of boat-generated solid waste, specific outdoor lighting, fuel storage. I mean, there's a
Yeah,
whole-
I think, Jackie, I think that would be, as applicable if they're doing those activities, it would be required. I don't know necessarily. I know it's a little strange, one section brings you to one and then the other section actually brings you back in another part of the town code. But I think it's as, if they're doing those activities.
Right.
Correct, where applicable.
Yeah,
You know, my one reservation here is that we've seen boat storage and boat yards where it starts out at one level, then it goes into 2.
Yeah, and I think it's
They
something.
are quite unsightly to the neighboring properties.
I think that's something that could probably be met with a condition to review, Jackie, that you say,
Mm-hmm.
this is a single level only, you can't have stands. I think that's
Maximum number of boats
number of boats, that's all important stuff, yeah.
and sufficient circulation on the property. It looks pretty tight to me because you've maxed out that whole area.
Yeah.
That's why you want the fire district to weigh in, or the fire marshal.
Absolutely, yeah.
I just put together this sketch showing the boats, I think 5-6 feet apart, just to show the sort of the worst case scenario is you would have this many boats.
Susanna, they might actually have a standard,
Yeah,
out of one of the manuals. where they have a boat separation requirement. So,
Okay, we'll figure that out.
yeah.
All right. Does anybody else have any
Are
questions?
there any boats on the property now?
I don't know about it at this exact moment. The aerials show a couple of small boats that are just there for personal.
And the application says that there's a pool. Can you just point out where that swimming pool is?
I don't,
Yeah, Jackie, I don't think there's a pool.
There is no pool.
no.
Yeah, the house is going to,
Two-story frame house with garage, right? Am I looking at the right thing?
I don't think there's a garage.
Oh, okay.
There's an attached garage, I believe, or there was at one point to the house. But we're not proposing to do any other construction.
Yeah, this is the unique situation where the house is actually the pre-existing non-conforming use and the boatyard would be a permitted use by special exception in the zone. So, I mean, the major issue I can see here is whether the house can remain with this other use. I mean, but that's up for the ZBA to determine.
Okay. I think you have some direction, Susanna, from us, unless you have any other questions.
Is the board comfortable with seeing this if Susanna proceeds to the ZBA?
I think there's going to be some neighborhood pushback.
Yeah, as a board member, I don't have any particular heartburn about it. I mean, I think it's a reasonable use of property based upon, as was explained, the current tax situation and so forth. But I agree with Jackie that you're probably going to get some pushback from the neighbors.
Is it RWB though?
It's RWB. So actually, like I said, the house is
RW.
Yeah, I mean, what could happen is the house could no longer be there, and then a boatyard, they could submit an application, for pre-submission for the special exception for a boatyard.
Town creates these zones specifically to accommodate these type of uses. I remember years ago when the area in Eastport Trumpets was coming in to actually change to residential zone. It's before Trumpets was built, and the town said no. They want to keep it as RWB is valuable zoning designation.
Correct.
Right, even though this is on a dug canal, it's not on a natural water body.
It's RWB.
Yeah.
There are many RWB parcels that are not even on fronting on
Correct,
water.
yeah.
Right.
Susanna, I think the only concern that I hear consistent from all the board members is in terms of it being one level and making sure that there's enough flow on the property. I mean, without being committal to yes or no, I think these are the initial concerns, is whether it goes 2 levels, because those are really ugly when it starts stacking boats 2 or 3 levels up in this community. And I think the issue of the flow, the amount, and the restrictions that no other thing would be done on this property but storage. There would be no repairs, no gas, fuel, fueling, washing.
Yeah, I mean, I would think before you go to the ZBA, I would talk to the fire marshal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's going to give you a lot of good information about how many boats that actually can fit there.
Okay. And I think the homeowner is definitely open to limiting the use to just what we've described, just 1 level, purely storage, no repairs. If those could all be conditions, I think that would be totally acceptable.
All right.
Okay.
I thank you so much for your feedback, and we'll meet with the fire marshal and figure out the flow and spacing better. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susanna.
Okay, closing the work session and going back into the afternoon session. First application, Anthony, is Jacqueline Cressy.
So this is just an extension. You see the aerial here. This was the lot line change that we were looking at on Bayview.
Moving the house off the beach.
Moving the house. Yep. So they're still working on getting revised plans. So they've asked for an extension for the action deadline until March 11th, 2021.
to March 11th, an extension. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Phil, second by, can you take that off, Anthony, so I can see the board? Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Dennis, all in favor, opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Anthony, your Camp Jerome.
Yep, Jim Walker from InterScience might be here, so let me just share the screen.
I think we've lost Anthony.
Hello,
I think we've lost-
Charles,
Yeah.
we lost,
Sorry, can you hear me?
yes, we lost you.
Yeah, I don't know why I did that. I'll try again here. So anyway, this is a subdivision off of Main Street in Quiog. This is the water quality improvement high priority area. It's the R40 zoning district. There's multiple existing structures on this property, including a main house and 2 cottages, as well as a number of accessory structures. The application, and this is actually a yield map showing a total of 8 lots. Their preferred plan was a 4-lot reduced density plan with 2 lots up here, 1 lot down here, and then the 4th lot containing all of the existing structures. The application was previously deemed incomplete. The planning board, we raised the question about having 3 residences located on 1 lot. So this went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and in a recent decision, they approved the layout of the subdivision that would allow for the 3 residences and all the other structures to be located on this property. And then 3 vacant lots, new lots up here. The last time we discussed this, they were still pending with the ZBA. We discussed waiting for the ZBA decision. We were waiting for the yield map, which the applicant submitted. We did talk about a cluster plan, but the planning board waived that requirement for this property. So at this point, it looks like we have everything we need to deem this application, just a pre-application, complete, and to schedule the hearing for February 25th.
Can you tell us the rationale that the ZBA provided to allow for 3 residences on 1 lot?
Well, I think it was ultimately that the applicant was able to demonstrate that the overall subdivision density, i.e. these 3 new lots and the 3 existing residences on here, ultimately would not result in any additional density beyond what the yield would authorize. So if they were entitled to 8 single-family residences, the result of the subdivision is still only 6. That's as best as I could ascertain from the ZBA decision.
Anthony, just clarification.
Yep.
In the packet, we're talking about a proposed 3-lot subdivision, but I'm hearing there's a 4th lot and
I apologize, Gloria. It was an error on my part on the description. There were multiple plans that had been submitted previously, but the preferred plan was the 4-lot plan.
So the description should have been 4.
That's correct.
I thought, well, maybe because those houses are there, you don't count that lot. But
Yeah, no, it's definitely a mistake, and I'll fix it. And obviously, the final agenda will be
Thank
fixed.
you.
So it's lot 4 that has the 3 houses,
Yes.
and it has sufficient setback from the Aspetuck Creek?
Well, they're all existing, so I believe the wetland setbacks are here. So I think the swimming pool improvements don't meet the setbacks, but they're pre-existing. So.
Okay. So it's complete and schedule a hearing for February 25th.
That's correct.
Do we need to hear from Jim?
Hi, Jim.
Hi.
Jim, we're going to schedule a public hearing for February 25th.
Okay, Jackie. planning board should be aware that this is a family-owned property. It's always been Camp Jerome. There are 3 members in the family. They took ownership to the property. They came to us and they asked us for all kinds of ideas on how to deal with the property. As we got into the property, and Anthony can tell you that it's been around for a while, they expressed interest in keeping the main lot themselves. There are 3 houses. There's a big house, and then there's a 1.5-story cottage and a 1-story cottage. And the 3 families go there in the summer. So if you went there this summer, Anthony, you would run into a bunch of kids running around playing in the basketball court and the tennis court. And there's a boat slip down at the front, at the waterfront, and it's very pleasant. This used to be an artist family property. Camp Jerome is Jerome Stern. And a lot of the art was moved off, especially in the area close to the road, but a lot of the art is still there. And the family wants to keep as much as they can intact. There also was a little pony school up front. And I guess that has kind of petered out with COVID-19. So I haven't seen the ponies in a year. But the idea is to break off enough land to sell, to allow the family to keep the rest of the property and keep it the same. And that's the goals. That's why there's 3 structures on one big lot. They'd like to keep it more or less the way it is. Some of the stuff has been moved off and will never be exactly the way it was when they're growing up. But these 3 families all went there as kids and enjoyed the property as Camp Jerome. So that's the whole idea.
Good. Thank you for the background.
Thanks,
Any
Chair.
other questions from the board? If not, we'll deem the application complete and schedule a public hearing for February 25th. Motion by Dennis, second by Zuccarelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
Okay.
Jackie Laurent and Chantel Broda, completeness.
Yes. Let me just share the screen to show the board. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So this is the overall area. This is on Little Noyak Path. You can see that there's adjacent open space here and to the north. One of the reasons the applicant would like to discuss this today is obviously for completeness, but they wanted to know whether or not the planning board would consider a cluster plan. I thought you would at least want to review a cluster plan, given that there's a small strip of open space and the parcel's oversized. They are seeking 2 lots. So on this one, and there is a scenic conservation easement that's already established on the lot, and then asking to serve via the existing 25-foot flag strip, which would give each lot 12.5 feet of frontage on Little Noyak Path. I was playing a little bit of phone tag with the applicant's representative, but I did discuss with him some items that were missing from the subdivision map. So we both agreed, he agreed to give me information on the access strip, which you might be able to see is actually a separate described property than this property. So I just wanted to know how this was established, and then also to get the intent and understand who imposed the conservation easement, the scenic conservation easement here. So he's going to provide that, and I'm just recommending that it be deemed incomplete.
Okay. Motion to deem this incomplete.
Motion.
Glorian, motion by Glorian, second by Dennis, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Okay, moving on. Claire, you have the Bridgehampton Commons sign project.
Yes, Charles, I thought that InterScience might be here. I just don't see. Oh yeah, Lisa Poyer, please.
We never were able to really see those graphics particularly.
They're a little hard to see, that's for sure.
They're all, you have to turn your head upside down to see them.
I will, when I bring him up, I'll flip them so we can see him a little bit. So just as background, as they're coming on, I'm not quite sure if Tim,
Hello, Dana speaking.
I don't know if Tim was
Mr.
also
Boyer is
present.
here.
Tim?
Sorry, Tim McCulley?
Yep, Tim here with Inner Science. With Lisa.
Oh, great. Okay, great. So just some background. We received a site plan application for the modification of the existing master sign plan. And the planning board reviewed this on September 10th as a work session. And in that work session, there was talk, the existing, and I'll show you in 1 second, the existing plan, if you're familiar with it, all the signs were to be blue. And anything beyond that needed planning board review. There was to be also no logos without planning board review. So this signage, yes, is 30 years old. It was done in 1990. So the applicant came and discussed updating it with the smaller units being green with gold letters, and you reviewed that at that meeting. And the larger units at the discussion of the September 10th meeting were to be reviewed individually because the applicant would want to have prototypical signage with logos associated with it. So the master sign plan that's been submitted, it's been in written form, actually states that the planning board and the ARB would not review any future signage, and they would include logos and prototypical signage. In my view, that does not conform to the town code. That would be giving away all your powers to review signage. And the iterations could be in the millions of typical signs they could put up.
Right.
So I'm recommending it deemed incomplete. I can have the applicants speak. Do you want to see the sign details? As I said, the smaller ones are consistent with what you discussed. It's just the larger ones, they would be able to put any sign, any color based on the chart in the town code, and any logo.
Right, and also from what I could decipher, there was other language on the sign which doesn't comply to the town sign plan, which says 24 hours bakery. I mean, that's not permitted. The name of the store is, and that's the basic information. So were they aware of that? They're aware of this, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think there's been a little change in who has been reviewing this. I had been speaking to Brantz up until 2 weeks ago, but I guess he's no longer representing this application. So Lisa's coming on board. She may be coming up to speed with this application.
Okay, so we're deeming it incomplete.
Yeah, but the applicant's representatives are here if they would like to speak.
Yep. Lisa, would you like to say something?
Lisa Poyer with Inner Science on behalf of the applicant. I have Tim McCulley in my office here with me. As you can see, we'd just like to discuss with you about, based upon the work session from September, you had expressed concern about coming back to the board each time that an anchor store would come back into, let's say the use changed or the store changed. And it was expressed, I believe, by you, Chairman LaFaro, as well as agreed by Mr. Finnerty, that didn't necessarily meet a master sign plan as far as what is considered. You would review it at once and then approve everything. So we took that information back to the applicant and we kind of reformulated the plan a little bit. The anchor stores, there's only a few of them right now. It's basically like a Staples, a King Cullen, the Kmart, the TJ Maxx. Those are stores that we deem as anchor because they're more than 8,000 square feet as far as area within the complex. While we wouldn't be giving any approval to any anchor store as far as whatever their logo is, we would say that we would like to be able to craft the master plan where they could use their initial logos and or fonts and colors within the parameters that are currently allowed by the ARB. There's a chart that lists, 4 or 5 different acceptable colors. And let's say that a new store comes in and it has a red shade, and their shade of red is not an approved red shade, they would adjust their red shade to be a town approved color. So we feel that it gives a little bit of use, and that way different stores can come in, but still have parameters set in place, where we would still limit ourselves to the town approved colors. We would still limit ourselves to the town area ratio that is allowed for wall signs. So that way there could be a turnover of stores at some point in the future, if there were, but it still also allows stores to be recognized as far as branding of their fonts, their line that they carry, particular, whatever store that happens to be. And especially right now with retail stores, sometimes on the downward trend, it's important to allow people to easily recognize what's going on in that shopping center and to pull in, go to the one store that they need to go to, get what they need, and then leave and then go home.
No,
So
the procedure is that the signs go through the planning board. So as Claire said, we're not going to relinquish that process. As far as the signs go, any auxiliary information is by the sign code is not permitted. So I'm not quite sure what it is that you're trying to achieve. We acknowledge the anchor stores. They've been there for many years. They have their signs up now. They comply to the old sign law. Understand you're upgrading with colors and you want to upgrade the anchor store. Get that, but we still have a sign code, and so it's something that has to be before, as Dennis and I have said before.
Okay. Yeah, but this is Tim McCulley, 41 Meeting House Lane, Southampton, of Council of the Burke and Sullivan. What we're trying to achieve here is that when they're negotiating with their tenants, they want to know up front, okay, if we're going to comply, and we can drop the thing that says that you don't get to review it, because under the code, you have that right even under a master plan. But we're trying to get parameters, even for the bigger stores, color-wise and code compliant, so we know if we come in and it complies with the code, that unless it's an unusual situation, we're going to get approved. That's what we're trying to do. So we're not hanging out there. I don't know that you guys have been approving every sign in that shopping center forever.
We had a sign code, so if they complied to the sign code, they did. It was fine.
I don't think we're saying that we're going to do anything but meet the code.
It's just I don't want to be belabor. I think that you might have a good idea. I think we just don't. I think it's better in a work session because we're talking about a big issue here. I have some suggestions. I think that if you said one color, one fonts, like Staples or Ulta, those would be fine. I think the board could agree up to that, and as being part of the master sign plan, one color on the list, one thing. But just carte blanche with the logo is I think you can't. Planning board was very firm about logos recently on this.
The logos are allowed in the code. Okay, you want to have your review because you say you're entitled to it under the code, and we're entitled to logos under the code.
Yeah, to be reviewed. To be reviewed. That's all. Yeah.
I got a message from someone from Kimco who wants to join. I don't know if they're.
Oh, okay.
I have.
Thank you. As I said, I'm just deeming it incomplete. I think this is better for a work session.
Much better.
February 11th, we'll put you on for a work session. Give us some examples.
Yeah, Doris?
Examples of what? I'm a little confused.
Examples on the
logos
signs
you
you're
want.
proposing.
afternoon, members of the board. It's Doris Ennis from Kimco Realty.
Yes.
500 North Broadway in Jericho, New York.
Yes.
I'm not sure why my video isn't showing, but I just wanted to just give a little perspective about our application.
I'm gonna have to stop you. You had this background at the work section. We need to just deem this incomplete or not. We have a lot of things on the agenda. I don't want this board to be going to 6 o'clock. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. I just wanted to say that on Kimco's behalf is that we were not opposed to having the normal process take place.
Oh, okay, that's good.
We have nothing against that.
Okay.
From my understanding, I know that the applications go through the building department, and then if there's anything that does not meet the current master sign plan, it gets referred to the ARB. Isn't that correct?
And the planning board.
And the planning board. Yes. So we don't want to change the process.
Great. So just adjust the master sign plan, resubmit it, planning board will consider it, and then we can start the process.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And we're open to the discussion.
Okay, great, thanks.
Claire, can you do me a favor? Can you give us some direction?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let's talk tomorrow.
Okay, on the signs, that's one thing. Now, also on secret, you have to tell me if it's not a type 2, what is it?
It's an unlisted action. And you're ensuring that you're meeting the original seeker determination. This is a modification of the site plan.
Okay, so it's an unlisted action, so you're going to coordinate?
So if you're consistent with the code, you're gonna get a neg deck. So, that's what we're looking for.
All right.
Great.
Okay.
So we're deeming, thank you. We're deeming it incomplete. Can I have a motion to deem it incomplete? Robin, moved by Robin, second by Gloria, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Thank you.
We're gonna let you know on the work session.
Are we doing the February 11th work session?
Let's do that, but let's talk tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
Anthony?
Yep.
Your Zapula, the Zapula property is an extension, 1 year?
This is a 2-lot subdivision in Eastport. This has got an existing single residence in the front. They're going to be doing actually an affordable housing lot in the back. So they had to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals on that. The Zoning Board just had their first hearing last week on it. I attended that hearing. So they are in the process. We're a little late with the extension, but the extension would bring the pre-app report until January 9th, 2022, and this is just the first normal extension.
Okay, motion for the extension, motion by Dennis, second by Zuccarelli, all in favor.
Aye.
Abstention, 6 in favor. The Fisher organization is off the agenda, number 7.
Yeah, that's off.
And Eric Donato, number 8, is another extension.
Yep, so let me just get to that. Okay. This is a Hampton Bays property. It's on Bayview, Bay Avenue West in Hampton Bays. This is a lot in the R20 zoning district, has an existing single-family residence on the front here. There is a right-of-way that traverses the property, and they're looking to do a second lot in the back. They're also before the Zoning Board of Appeals for this application. And this would bring the pre-app, this is just an first extension for the pre-app report, which would bring it until July 19th of 2021. It's a little late, this one. I happened to notice it in the system, so I got in touch with the applicant, but it would bring it until July 19th, 2021.
Great. Motion for the extension, motion by Gloria, second by Dennis, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Jackie, can I just interrupt real quick for 1 second?
Sure.
Just to remind you, number 10 is off the agenda, Oakland Farms.
Got it, right?
And I just wanted to ask if I could quickly walk on, it'll take 2 minutes. At the last meeting, we did a covenant amendment for 4 Blue Jay Way. That's Wildlife Associates,
Right.
Section 1, Lot 54. It was a covenant amendment to allow the clearing to go from 35% under the covenants to 50% under the code. Robin.
Yeah, I would go to recuse myself immediately from this, so I'm going to turn off my video.
Okay.
Mute myself.
Okay, but we didn't have 5 votes last time. We only had 4. And the covenant amendment requires majority plus 1. Since we have the 5 board members here now, I just wanted to see if we could re-vote on a covenant amendment for 4 Blue Jay Way.
Wildlife Associates.
Yeah, Wildlife Associates, Section 1, Lot 54.
Robin participating?
No.
No,
Oh.
she's not, but we didn't have Phil last time.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria and second by Dennis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, says 5 in favor, 1 recusal, 1 absent.
Good. Thank you so much for
Thank
that.
you.
Thanks, Anthony.
So Stehecki,
Yes, Thomas Dehecke.
Madam Chair, I'll be recusing and Attorney Scalera is present.
okay, welcome. Hi. Okay, Claire.
Okay, so I forwarded you the pre-submission report draft for your review. Oh, I'm sorry. Charles, if you could let Chick Voorhees and Dave Martin Jr. in.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. So there was a pre-submission conference on November 12th and December 15th, which was a special meeting. There was numerous public comments at both the meetings and submitted in writing after for the 30-day written comment period. So I recently gave you the updated list the other day, yesterday. So, but that is complete. That is upon the review. And so do you want to just go through the pre-submission report first?
Do that, yeah.
Okay. And did you want me to go through the public comments first before that? Or did you, I mean, I've summarized them. Do you want me to read that into the record or just have it part of the record? Because it
Have it as part of the record. I think we all got them and them. There are 3 pages worth, I think, 2 or 3 pages.
Mm-hmm.
Just, are you going to share your screen? You could just.
Yeah, I could just do that. Let's do that first.
And, yeah.
Okay, great. So the application, here's the public. So yes, as I said, November 12th and December 15th, these are the comments that were summarized from the actual meeting. And then the written comments, they're here and they are part of the record. And anybody who wants to foil them, they can contact the planning department and we can get them a copy of this.
That's great, Claire. So there were 5 pages.
Yeah, exactly. And then go back. I guess we'll go through the pre-submission report. And also there's a secret action on this that's anticipated for the next meeting. I do have a part 2 that I preliminarily prepared, and I'd appreciate your feedback on that too for secret determination for February 11th. But first we'll go through the pre-submission reports.
Okay.
And here's the plan that's proposed. They have changed their, so this was supposed to be a emergency access, but I believe that is going to be their primary access now onto Major's Path. There's the architecture. The application.
It's sideways.
I know. I'm gonna just get to the point and flip it back.
There we go.
Yeah, so this site plan applications for change of one non-conforming use to another from an existing non-conforming use for the receipt of natural organic waste, trees, brush, stumps, leaves, and other clearing debris to a 120-unit multifamily condominium with a 2-story clubhouse and recreation area on 20.1 acre property situated in the R60 zoning district at 1205 Majors Path in North Sea. This describes the plans, and the applicant provided a revised rendering indicating the entrance onto Majors Path. There's the references to the public conference dates, and the attachment is the public comments. Prior to site plan, secret to be completed, a ZBA decision granting variance to change from one non-conforming use to another, of course, a full application. So the project is a type 1 action. Planning board as the agency will be required to make a secret determination prior to deeming the site plan application incomplete. I left this as, to add additional information here, but maybe after we can go through the part 2, you could identify some of the issues you'd want to just spell out here. I'm not quite sure if you want me to add anything right now.
Well, let's go through the report, Claire.
Yep. And then the uses, attached is a copy of the CO issued by the Town of Southampton Building Department for the pre-existing non-conforming use for the receipt of natural organic wastes. This use was the subject of ZBA matter, and the ZBA upheld the CO on June 18th, 2020. I also have that attached. The applicant stated that EF is an existing composting operates on site. This is not supported by the ZBA decision. The ZBA is silent on processing. The planning board has requested a copy of any DEC permits issued for composting. Nothing has been received to date. On the record, the applicant and the public have noted the site was a former dump site, the old North Sea landfill. Some of the history of the dump, which has been determined to be abandoned, is outlined in the ZBA June 18th, 2020 decision. No information has been submitted to date about the nature of the proposed supposed contamination and the limits of said dump. Any residential development shall have an affordable housing component which complies with the state and town requirements. No information has been submitted as to the as-of-right development under R60 zoning cluster and yield and cluster plans with affordable components. Should be provided. I'll add that.
Should be provided, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want me to go through the part 2, or do you want to add some language under this?
I ask a question, is there anything pending, or should we mention anything pending in the courts on the ZBA, or is there?
I'm not quite sure if Christine knows anything about that, but or the
Wait, in terms of controverting the ZBA, the certificate of occupancy determination? Yeah, I think we went through this last time. David, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's nothing new in terms of what's proceeding in court. Have they come to any resolution of that issue? David Gilmartin, Farrell Fritz, 50 Station Road, Watermill, New York. I represent the applicant here, Engel Berman. The property is owned by the Thomas Hecky Living Trust. I don't know if anybody from the trust is here. I don't believe they are. We were not named in the Article 78, so I have very current information on it, but I have not heard a decision's been made, but the town is a party to that. Right, and I haven't heard a decision has been made, but there is no stay that has been enforced, so there's nothing that prevents us from proceeding today as we indicated last time.
That's
correct.
I'm not saying that if there's anything that we're state from doing, but should it be noted somewhere in the background in the information that there is a pending Article 78, or is that improper to do?
The information that I have in the Article 78 and the town attorney's office probably has more information than me, is there was a motion to dismiss the Article 78 for failure to name necessary parties. Apparently the litigation named Thomas DeHecke individually instead of the trust. And they also failed to name the applicant, namely Engel Berman.
I'm just asking in the history.
You can do it. If you're going to add it, then you should. You can add do it. information. That's entirely up to the board. If you do it though, just indicate on it, there is no stay, so there's nothing seating, just so somebody doesn't get the wrong idea of why it's in the report.
I think it's a good idea to include it. It gives a complete record.
It's relevant history.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Claire, so do you want to go through the
part 2?
The part 2.
Okay. You're sharing screen. Sorry, that's backwards. So this is the applicant's part 1 that was submitted. And this is the part 2. So as I just checked it, I didn't put any details in this, but this impact on lands, some small to moderates. The action is more than 1 year.
The parcel is also located across from a CEA. The Aquifer Protection Overlay District border is Major's Path, just so you know.
Do we have to include anything in here about a prior designation as a Superfund site?
Oh, I think that, yeah, I definitely think there's some designation with that coming up.
So where would you put that, Clara?
Yeah, I can put that in impact on land. Now, its designation, not that it's a Superfund site, it's a potentially contaminated site, right? That we don't have the information for. But are you saying the Superfund site of the dump across the street?
No, I'm talking about this parcel.
This parcel. Okay. Do you want me to say anything about the dump across the street too, or no?
Well, let's on this particular breakdown, I think we need to focus on the parcel itself.
Okay.
Is there any evidence that the parcel across the street is having any effect on this parcel?
Thank you, Robin.
You're welcome.
That's a good question. And then this is what this document's for, is this question.
So then I would encourage adding the parcel across the street, the issues, until we know for sure there is no impact from parcel 2 to this parcel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do know that drinking wells in the entire area were contaminated by the dump. So, you know, even that's why there's county water there now.
So you're going to add that to the language in H, Claire? Does that alter
yes.
any of your small to moderates to large impacts?
Yeah, that's what makes this a large impact.
Okay.
I agree. And we'll put some language to that effect in there.
So we're going to note the parcel across the street, this parcel, and the issues. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there may be a place for that later on too. So there might be some crossover here, but we'll come to that.
Duplicate is okay.
Yeah, it probably under groundwater, you know. So the impact on geologic features, non-surface waters.
Yeah, no.
This may. I'm going to give some thought to this. I'm not quite sure if the board has any thought. I'm just going to.
Guess what we just said.
There was a couple of comments related to the harbor, so I'm going to think about this section, and if you have any comments for that.
I know the pollution plume from the dump had been determined to be heading toward North Sea Harbor. It's a down gradient. And in fact, the monitoring wells for that facility are all placed in what would be the northwestern proximity. So unless the hydrology has changed significantly, one has to assume that this property is in that same flow region.
Yeah, right.
So I'm going to click this and I'll put some more language in here. Oh, or no, I can't click it. Sorry, it's not an active thing. I'm going to check it and I'll fix that.
Here's a pen for you, Claire.
I know. I'll get to it, I promise. So then anything else on that? I'm just going to impact on groundwater. I think we touched on this.
Well, let's put that, yeah, you've got major impacts, but let's put, you know, the potential groundwater from the North Sea landfill.
Yep.
And also the remediation of this site when it was kept in debris. I believe we have no further determination about that remediation. We asked for it. We asked for DEC updates.
Right.
So I think we need to include that here.
Okay.
Claire, is there any place where the idea that this is such an intense use, the ability for the electric grid to support that intense use, where might that be?
Energy coming up.
Yeah, thank you.
Definitely. That's a good point. There was some comments on services. Okay, so I'm going to put the information on groundwater
related to the landfill on site. Impact on anything.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. So it's a landfill on site, and also aren't we going to look into see also here whether the landfill that's across the street, anything, any movement towards the water sources from there?
I agree. We should have some language to that effect in there.
Thank you.
Okay. And then impact on flooding. I don't have anything identified on that issue. Impacts on air. I say small to moderate. I start to think that air quality might be an issue.
Traffic.
Traffic.
Yeah.
So that's up to you. What you think is this? Do you think it's small to moderate or large?
Well,
Again, because of the intense amount of property that's going to be overused, it's got to be large. You know, you've got, instead of 6 houses with maybe a dozen cars going out, now you have 120 condos with a minimum of 240 cars. You know, that's an exponential increase.
I know there are Suffolk County health reports that where people think that the air in the east end of Long Island is so pure. In fact, it isn't.
Horrible. Because
of traffic. With the combustible engines on cars.
Okay.
Not enough of us have electric cars.
Okay.
So are we changing that to significant, or what is that?
I'm changing that to be large.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll put some language into that. And again, we'll have an opportunity next week, and I'll send it to you ahead of time.
Okay.
So if you give some thought, you know. Some
Was there
adjustments.
a clubhouse on this also, on this proposal?
I'm sorry, what?
There was a clubhouse on this proposal.
Yeah.
There is. Yeah.
That- Yeah. So it's not just the housing. You have another bit, you have accessory uses.
True.
That might be including increasing traffic and such too, so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty hard not to say large for anything that's going to be impacted by the amount of density that's being suggested.
Okay.
Are there any impacted species here?
That is unknown to me. I'm going to pull the some documents from the DEC on this.
Okay.
And I'll have some additional language for you related to that. The only one I immediately remember from this area is the northern long-eared bat.
Long-eared bats.
Those bats.
They seem to be everywhere.
So I did note that, and obviously that this involves some clearing of trees and their habitat as the trees. So there would definitely be some impact there. So do you want me to check large on that one?
No.
Are there other species or just that?
Let me double check, but I don't know of them off the top of my head.
Other than humans?
Yeah, I would caution doing a kitchen sink type EAF. It's not going to strengthen our scoping. I think we have to focus on the areas where there's definite impacts. If we make everything large, it's I think a lot of the impacts going to get lost in the shuffle. That's just my feeling.
And we can still say small, but have them address it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could say small to moderate, but if you go large for endangered species, I mean, it's going to get lost with the traffic and the air. I think Glorian's point was well taken.
This dog. He or she wants to be counted.
Okay, impact on agricultural resources.
Do you want to leave it large, or well, you know, we can decide
small
next
to
week.
moderate, but you have to
Small to moderate
on
would-
H, you have to, it's more than 10 acres of forest, so.
Small to moderate would be my.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't know for sure, I mean, you can't really say large.
Large, right.
Okay, I'll change it. Small to moderate. Impact on agricultural, I didn't identify anything. This is supposed to be a tree farm, so I don't know. But it's not an ag district. Impact on historic aesthetic resources. Here it's, I think there's a large impact in the, it's not the character of the zoning.
Yeah, which categories do you have large?
And this is aesthetics. So I would check the last one in terms of the character. And that would go back down.
Community character.
Yeah.
And that falls within this aesthetic
It would.
category?
Yes.
Mhm. Okay.
This does not appear to be in an archaeological or historic site, so I did not check this.
It's a historic dump.
1950s.
Yeah.
I bet there's interesting things in there, that's for sure. I don't know, is that one of the thresholds?
Now I'm being a little silly.
Yeah. Gotcha. So the next section is open space. It is immediately adjacent to open space to the, I guess, northeast, maybe. I don't know if you want to just check this to be small to moderate.
Small to moderate, I think, yeah.
So it is not in a critical environmental area that I've identified to date. As I said, the aquifer protection is on the other side of the road. So this is the border. Impact on transportation. This is a large one. I'll put some language to that effect in here with the numbers and things.
Very much.
And here is your impact on energy. I think this is a valid one. I've checked moderate to large.
Mm-hmm.
I did a quick calculation of this, and it's well over 100,000 square feet of building area.
Okay.
And then noise in order light. This one I did check, obviously for construction purposes. Hopefully no more odors, you know, with this use. This is a potential. Obviously, we have a very strong town code, you know, and so this could be small to moderates if it's controlled through the site plan. But it's just I think it's the number of lighting in one area that it would result even if
The density, yeah.
yeah. So that's why I've done that. If you want me to change it, I can. And then impacts on human health. Is the site of the proposed action currently undergoing remediation? Maybe not currently, but should. We just don't have that information yet.
Right.
And so I've checked a couple with the solid modification solid waste facility, unearthing solid and hazardous waste. We just don't have a lot of this information yet. So I'll try to answer these questions. And I've just said former dump, obviously, but I'll put some more language in there related to that. Anything you want me to add?
Well, you'll just flesh those out, right?
Yes, this is going to have a part, my part 3, which is a narrative.
Language, yes.
We'll go through it. Yes.
And the consistency with the community plans, yes, all
Yes,
large.
all of them. And then consistency with community character, correct. Again, a lot of this is that you don't have, this is a concept, we don't have all the information also, and that's what, you know, SECRA helps you get. Any other questions?
No, that looks pretty complete. Thanks for going it over.
Do you want the applicant to speak, or does the applicant want to speak with your?
Here, Chick, David, would you like to say anything, or are you you've heard the report?
We've heard the. Hi, everybody. Chick Voorhees of Nelson Pope and Voorhees on behalf of the applicant. And we're here to listen. We did get a copy of the draft pre-submission conference report before the meeting. Everything looked to be in order. Certainly identifying the potential impacts is critical to this process. So we're taking notes. It's almost in effect like scoping. You know, these are the things that are up to the planning board to determine what impacts are potentially significant or small to moderate. And yeah, I have nothing to add. I think Claire did a great job, and we understand the concerns.
Okay, thank you. And Claire will update, and you'll get that to us, Claire.
Yes, and I'll try to get the applicants, the planning board, and then the applicant, all the information prior to next week's meeting. Plenty of time.
Okay, so next week is the date that we make our declaration.
We don't have a meeting next week. It's 2 weeks.
I'm sorry. Next meeting. It's the next meeting. February 11th.
Is it appropriate to ask the applicants if they have any more information vis-a-vis the DEC stuff?
Yeah.
I'm happy to comment that nothing has changed since our presentations earlier. The applicant wants to get a full sense of the planning board's concerns before proceeding with some costly testing. We do have a work plan approved by DEC, as I indicated before, that would conduct additional testing on the site so that we can design a remediation plan. But that's consistent with what I indicated before. So there's really nothing to add.
May I ask for clarification on timing and the interrelationship with the ZBA timing? What clock are we on at this point, and when does this go to the ZBA relationship?
Claire, do you want to speak to the 45 days is actually today, right, for the pre-submission report?
Yeah, so planning board could adopt a pre-submission report, and that doesn't have to do with the ZBA. That is the planning board's process. And then where it relates to the ZBA is SECRA needs to be completed prior to any decision from the ZBA.
And we had initially, whether it was 1 or 2 meetings ago, the applicant had waived the SECRA, the timeline in connection with that at that point. So to the extent that they are going through their process, I'm not aware of anything that we're up against right at this time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, if there's no further discussion, there's no action on this, Claire, you'll bring it back to us revised for the next session.
Right, exactly.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, David and Chick.
Very nice to see you all. Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, Christine.
Thanks, yeah.
And
Okay.
Christine, yeah.
Number 10, Oakland Farms is off the agenda. 11, Matthew, that is you, Hildebrandt Estates, covenant amendment.
Yep. This is a covenant amendment to bring the clearing restrictions into conformance with the town code on the property. It's located at 30 Squires Boulevard in Hampton Bays. They were by covenant limited to 12,000 square feet. The amendment allowed them to go to 50%. We did get a survey with this application that shows they're in compliance, and the aerial you're looking at is actually pretty new. We just got these. This is 2020, so it looks good still. Kathleen's reviewed the language, found it acceptable. It's pretty much all I have. So if the board's okay, we can move it.
Okay, we have any discussion? If not, a motion?
Motion.
On the covenant by Gloria and second by Dennis, all in favor? Okay, 6 in favor. So we have a super majority and 1 absent.
Thank you.
Jackie Rothman Dynasty.
Yes, can you please let Daphne Vaughn in? And I believe also the owners of the property, the Rothmans, would be in on the Zoom call.
Okay, this is a super lengthy report, so you might want to. not read every word of it, please, but just
Sure,
have
yeah,
you-
I'll go through it. Charles, are you seeing Daphne and the Rothmans?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so if you'll recall, this is the subdivision. They're seeking a 2-lot subdivision. This is the same property where they were seeking the covenant amendment for no further subdivision of Lot 1, which this is. The other lots in the subdivision go to further to the east. This is an 8.05 acre parcel with a yield of 2 lots for the R80 zoning district. Part of the covenant amendment was the planning board was comfortable moving forward with the covenant amendment now at the final application stage formally, as long as the applicant pursues the cluster plan, which essentially would preserve these northern wetlands adjacent to Flax Pond. This is the yield plan that shows the 2-lot yield of upland area exclusive of the wetlands. This is that wetland flagging line. This is one plan which shows open space to include the majority of the wetland buffers. And then this is a cluster plan alternative that's preferred by the owners. I'll
and
just,
both of those have access onto 7 Ponds,
both of them have access onto 7 Ponds Town.
both
They're-
designed that way, which is a big issue here now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and then I was recommending, and the applicant understood that it would be served by a common driveway here, so there wouldn't be additional curb cuts. As you know, this is where people sometimes are queuing during the busier work hours, rush hour. And there's the stop sign right here where this queues up. You might be familiar. And then I'll just quickly go through the report. As again, this is a 8.05 acre property. Secret classification is an unlisted action due to the presence of freshwater wetlands on site. This is the portion regarding the historic minor subdivision application with the covenants here, and that we received a covenant amendment application. So I summarized the planning board's discussion during that review, and that they advised that the applicant could proceed with a covenant amendment as long as they proceeded with a cluster subdivision. So that's right here in that paragraph. This is a description of the overall maps, which is the standard plan. I briefly went over the planned residential cluster plan, which has almost all of the open space, including the wetland buffers. And then this is a description of the applicant's preferred cluster plan. Let me see here. This is, just the fact that there's wetlands and we prefer the cluster. Next, I do want to discuss the planning board's preference for which cluster plan, but let's go through the referrals first so that we can review the comments we have received. This is exempt from long hour workforce housing because it's under 5 lots. It is in conformance with the comprehensive plan update, which states for traditional neighborhood design. The park requirement would be a flat fee because it's a 2-lot subdivision, so the fee would be assessed only on 1 lot for the subdivision. And summarize the public comments with the multiple public hearings that we had. First June 2019, then August, and then with the recent resubmittal and reactivation on December 10th, 2020. Fire prevention comments, we got pretty much standard comments from them both times in 2019 and 2021, that they both front on the street and that street number shall be determined. We have not received any comments from the fire district. The town engineer had lengthy comments. We will work towards those at the final application stage. The highway department did have concerns about the driveway accessing 7 Ponds Town Road, as the chair indicated. So their first memos were not in favor of there being an outlet there. Since then, I did recommend, because the applicant really would prefer to have an outlet to avoid the traffic, that they meet with the highway department on site, which I did meet with the applicant's representative, Daphne Vaughn, on the site just to walk the property and to see the culvert and to see the conditions. So there is a very old cement culvert that basically acts as a French drain from the intersection of Seven Ponds Town and Lower Seven Ponds Town. And it might be, is it David? No, it's just, I don't know if it's David Whiteside. No, it's not David Whiteside. Sorry. So recently they did have comments. Their comments did seem to change, and they did seem to, and I'll let Daphne speak to this more. It did seem like they were amenable possibly to having that driveway outlet on Seven Ponds Town Road, which would come out on like, right to the south of the wetlands area. They were asking for drainage details and more information on those plans. Would you like me to read this, Jackie?
Well, I think you need to read just where they state why the proposed reference driveway should only enter and exit on Lower Chevron and should be terminated at a point that produces adequate The highway department will not permit any entrance and exit driveway on Seven Ponds Town Road. It would compromise the existing drainage that's in place in the stormwater system for multiple surrounding town roads. That's their position, that if that driveway goes out onto Seven Ponds, it's going to impact the drainage, not only on that road, but other properties.
I jump in quickly. If there was a map approved, I think early 80s, maybe late 70s. It's called Xanadu with an X, and it's on Narrow Lane South. And there's actually a drainage swale running along Narrow Lane South all the way to Scuttle Hole Road. And each one of those lots was subject to site plan approval, but there, as part of that map, there's actually a schematic of every driveway that has to be constructed. And it's a fully engineered model of they have to put the culverts in and what size and what depth. There's a whole engineered spec of those. So it may be worthwhile, Jackie, if you could pull that map out of archives.
Okay.
I know it's the name of it's a weird name, Xanadu, which is back then.
Xanadu.
But it's the same situation where driveway could be connected out, and accommodate the swale. There may be benefits of getting that second access out to Seven Ponds Town because of that issue with the queuing of the. I mean, most afternoons it's a solid wall of cars.
Yeah.
Halfway down Lower 7.
Yes,
cars
sorry.
queuing up on Seven Ponds Town. I mean, that what is it, four-way stop sign?
Yeah,
is just horrible. It doesn't matter which way they go. They're going to be in a queuing situation, in my opinion.
I mean, I've seen it much worse here. I haven't ever really been queued back to here before in here, but that's my personal experience.
It's all on Lower 7. I live probably closest to anyone, and it's all on Lower 7.
Oh, that's my back road to Watermill.
Yeah, I've definitely been queued on this entire road, all the way back to this what is that road?
Head Pond.
So there has to be some discussion with the highway department and the
yeah. So Jackie, in the recent comments, I might be interpreting this wrong, but I felt like they were changing their tune. I felt like they were now amenable to one driveway as long as it was built in accordance with their standards, and that there would be a bond held for the maintenance of that for an initial year. Would you like me to read it? Just because I know it's kind of probably small on your screens.
The only question I have, because what I'm getting confused about is, it started with an issue about drainage.
Yes.
Then we've been talking about the cars and the traffic queuing up. And now they're saying
so let me connect
their attitude because of the drainage, but how is that affecting the cars queuing up?
Because Robin, they wanted a driveway to get out of their property.
No.
Because of the queuing up.
Yes, so I'm just.
So there's a nexus, yeah.
The traffic isn't changing because we've changed the drainage.
Right.
No, so Robin, what it is it's queued here. They're asking essentially, I've been calling it an escape driveway, for lack of a better term, but the escape route would be here. So when there's heavy traffic, this lot would be able to navigate to Seven Ponds Town Road and to get to the intersection without having to wait
Okay, I'm sorry.
at this driveway.
Right.
Jackie, is there a way of connecting, giving access to the second? I mean, it's this small, I can't see it, but could we create a sort of an easement so the second lot could actually use that driveway too?
Yeah, that could be discussed because I think they're kind of showing almost on maybe one of the plans. Let me see. Oh, you know what? I have the driveway plans scanned in. One did not, one had a, like an error, but I do have, oh, of course, the one with the error was the one that showed it. But actually this one kind of shows it. It's like grayed out, so it's not highlighted. But this would be the common driveway. We're asking them to get rid of this curb cut, have a common driveway right on the middle here. So it'd still only be one driveway curb cut. And they are showing this. I believe it's intended to be a family compound, but I don't want to speak for the owners and their intent. But they are showing that this would give access to here and then out to here. Now, this is the area of concern, which it's in the town highway right of way. Based upon my preliminary discussions with highway, they were now okay with it. They didn't want anything to mess us up, but they basically said if it could be built properly to their satisfaction, and then with a maintenance bond agreement for that they would maintain it for at least 1 year, they were now essentially willing to see that as long as it was designed appropriately. So this is in the highway right of way.
Is that speculation or do we have it in writing?
I believe in their most recent comments, that's how I interpret it, but I can confirm with them. And I was asking for compliance with them as well. So let me go back to their newest memo from December, and I'll just read this into the record very quickly. Upon review of the reference project above, we have some concerns as it pertains to the town of Southampton Highway Department's right of way. The proposed driveway road opening that has egress onto Seven Ponds Town Road impacts the Southampton Highway Department drainage swale. A previous meeting between Highway Department and representatives of the owner was held on site. The discussions of the impact of the drainage swale and the Highway Department's determination was agreed upon. The owner is to provide a detailed stamp plan from a licensed engineer showing a culvert that passes under the driveway and allows for storm water to pass through the swale. It must be able to accommodate a rainfall event 1.5 times the maximum calculation for a 2-inch rainfall event. It must also be able to accommodate heavy truck loads passing over it. We would also like to have the pipe to be RCP, which I honestly don't exactly know what that means, and elliptical in shape. So I believe they want it like this, which would follow the culvert. It's a very, very big, essentially cement French drain, if you can visualize that. Yeah. As stated, we would like the pipe to be sized accordingly. As stated above, we asked that 1 tier or 1 year, I believe it is, 1 year maintenance agreement be in place after completion of the driveway. We also asked for in writing from the owner a release of all damages due to construction in the town's right of way. So basically,
well, this sounds very much like what Dennis was referring to in Xanadu. Is that it?
Yeah.
A very specially designed
Yeah.
item. But I have a question when you talked about common access and then a family driveway. I mean, they would have to draft some kind of easement language.
Yes.
If that property is sold, then that could terminate that.
Yeah, and they're essentially showing that right now. And there could be a termination. So it could be, when this is held in the same entity, that the easement remains, and maybe like a sunset clause that once they're held in separate entities, that would no longer, be appropriate. But what we're talking about is to really make sure we take a really close look at this, work with engineering and the highway department to make sure that this is built appropriately and then maintained for a year. And as long as everything holds up, we would have the guarantee by security and the bond for at least 1 year to make sure that it functions properly and doesn't impede any of the drainage. When I was on site, it did look doable, and I'm sorry, there was an error converting it to a PDF, the plans that I had, but it did show that we do have full engineered plans, which we can work with the highway department on that.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to say, I think this is so much ado about nothing, because I think both roads are horrible and they back up very far. So I don't really understand why they feel the need for it, because Seven Ponds Town, I will not use that road at 4 o'clock because I'll be backed up to Head of Ponds.
Right, yeah.
You're thinking of lower 7, Chlorine.
No, 7 Ponds, slowest 7 is where the joint driveway is.
Yeah. That's what backs up.
No, Seven Ponds Town backs
That's
up
true.
almost ahead of Pond up north.
It does.
Meta Pond links in with Lower Seven.
It also links in with Seven Ponds Town.
No, Seven Ponds runs north.
You
to
got
Water-
north.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a key map. Maybe we can, sorry, my screen is taking forever. This is the key map, Glorian. So this is Hedda Pond that heads up with Watermill Town Road. This is Lower Seven. This
That's
is Seven Ponds Town, which meets up with the Great Hill Road intersection.
Yeah. Lower Sevens is the one that backs up.
This is the one I've been stuck from here, queued all the way to there. I have not generally been queued, and I have.
I am.
It is. Seven Ponds Town is jammed at 4 o'clock. It's the trade parade going home.
There's just too damn many sub ponds roads.
It is confusing.
Change those names.
I mean, look, you've got Seven Ponds Upper, Lower, Seven Ponds Town because it meets up with Watermill Town, and then you've got Hedda Pond. So there's lots of ponds.
I mean, I drive these like almost daily, and I still confuse which one is which. So thank
Or
you.
after 3 days of heavy rain, it's 8 ponds. All those
Sure, it's all flooded. Okay, so I think
Good one, Dennis.
we discussed this.
Sorry for the distraction, but now I'm in agreement.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
You've read the town highway, you've read the engineer. Any other reports?
Well, so this is from the Conservation Board with their referral comments. So they are saying that this is part of Seven Ponds. This is Flax Pond. It's in the town high priority.
There's Flax Pond.
Yeah, there's another pond. And that this needs a 29239B. So that's to go over the wetland conditions at the final application stage. They stated that the southern portion of the parcel located along Seven Ponds Town Road contains a swale, which periodically has runoff. So that's the swale we were talking about. That there's 2 alternatives based upon the review of the maps. The conservation prefers the preliminary map dated March 9, 2016, which protects the majority of the required wetlands as open space. So that is important for our discussion further on. June 26th, the map needs to be revised to ensure that all of the proposed parcels lie within the 75 feet easterly portion of the westland boundary are protected as open space. So there are some very small portions of a radius which haven't been caught into a buffer. And I can show you that when we discuss about it more. The applicant is proposing install the driveway taking access of a Seven Ponds Town Road. However, the proposed access does not conform to minimum wetland setback. So in that case, the driveway, the escape driveway is 83 feet away from wetlands. The driveway on its own, right where it takes that bend. So they are asking that that driveway be relocated. A native vegetation plan is needed for all disturbed portions of the proposed open space, and the Environment Division would provide guidance on the appropriate restoration. Existing fence needs to be removed from the proposed open space, which I have as a recommendation. And over the past few years, they're noting that we're in a drought, so that they're asking for an updated test hole.
So, but they're also suggesting that that driveway not go through.
They are concerned because I'll show you the plan again. The driveway right here is, I think it's 83 feet. So the setback right here is 83 feet. Not the required 100, but it would be surrounded essentially by open space. So we can discuss that further. Let me get through the majority of the rest of the referral comments, and then we can have a thorough discussion on the difference between the 2 cluster plan alternatives. So this is their existing fence need to be removed, and the updated test hole. Environmental DEC stated in their 2019, we did not receive anything in 2020, that it is located in the vicinity of New York State regulated freshwater wetlands, but the subject is not a subdivision is not a regulated activity. The Trails Advisory Board also weighed in. I'll just read their most recent comments. The Trails Advisory Board would like to update our comments from 2019. We commend the Planning Board and the applicant for proposed open space between Seven Ponds and Town Road and Flax Pond, as it will protect some of this beautiful undeveloped piece of land. We still believe a trail through the proposed open space for the north half of this property will create pedestrian access to the previously inaccessible Flax Pond and also highlight the area's abundant wetlands and woodland features. A quorum of our board attended the January Zoom meeting and were shown two plans and prefer the plan which has slightly larger open space area and does not include the non-disturbance covenanted buffer. If for some reason this plan is not pursued, the plan with the buffer is certainly satisfactory to us. We did not get any comments from the Watermill CAC, the health department to date. So I just noted some planning issues, which is significant freshwater wetlands, traffic queuing along Lower Seven Ponds Road, existing stormwater swale along frontage of Seven Ponds Town Road, existing culvert directing stormwater flow to low-lying area, open space configuration versus buffers for upland wetland preservation, and New York State DEC listing possible endangered animals. So we will have to look at that more closely. So if you, is Daphne with us? Hi, Daphne. I just wanted to go back to, and I will exit the full screen mode just so we can zoom in. But I wanted to show you both, show you all the zoomed in difference between the two cluster plan alternatives. Okay, so this is, so this plan, as I just scroll down, sorry. Oh, so that was the yield plan. And then this is the cluster plan. So if you'll see, this is where you get that 83 feet to the proposed driveway. And then this is this solid line here is the open space line. So with that, you are having the majority of the wetland setbacks. So it would be 75 feet for this parcel since there's an existing dwelling. And you'll note that the dwelling is set kind of far back in the north east corner of this lot. This is the existing residence. And then the 75-foot buffer you'll see is right here. So this arc is a 75-foot buffer. So you'll see here that this is just missing a little bit of buffer hatching to establish that. And then this lot would be entitled under 325 to 100-foot setback. So they are showing a 100-foot setback here. And then you'll see that this radius just dips a little bit into the residential lot, but still showing the common driveway. So this plan would propose 5.656 acres of open space. So again, the majority is in the open space for the wetland buffers compliance. And then the applicant's preferred plan here shows 5.278 acres, which equates to about a 16,000 square foot difference between the cluster plan with majority open space wetlands. And then this one has buffers, which provides for the property to be slightly bigger. So this one would be around 57,000 square feet, and this one would be around 53,000 square feet. And it shows that the open space line would be here, still along the north, and that the buffers are proposed in the north here.
And what was the Conservation Board's preference?
Conservation Board's preference was the open space plan, this one, which had the majority of the wetlands in the open space parcel. But, you know, and then we still could basically buffer those little slivers.
That makes sense. That makes more sense than the applicant's preferred plan.
So, and then I'll just go back. This is the applicant's preferred plan again, just so you can compare them. So, I mean, in relation to 325, they are showing the buffering. I mean, we can address those radius, you know, right here. You know, and this is the wetlands line here. So you'll see that this has buffer portion, and then this. I did want to also note to the planning board, there is some existing clearing in here, which is the revegetation and restoration that we were talking about. So that would be in the buffer here as well. But you can see that this gives just a little bit larger area along the north.
Right, but it's less protection in terms of.
Yeah, I just wanted to show you the differences.
Less protection.
Yeah. So, and I'll let Daphne speak, you know, to the differences in the plans and the applicant's preference for this plan. So Daphne, I'll keep this one up if that's.
Sure, that would be great. Thank you, Jackie.
You're welcome.
Daphne Vaughn, Surfside Environmental Planning. I'm also here with Eli Rothman. He should be let in if possible.
Okay.
He's the owner of the property.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I thought they were already let in.
No, he's definitely not on yet. He's waiting.
Coming.
Thank you, Charles.
Okay. So, he's being let in, right? Because I don't see him on my screen.
He's here.
Okay, good. So just to address a couple of the items that have been brought up with regard to the second driveway onto Seven Ponds Town Road, I met with Jackie at the site back in June. She and I discussed some of the options for proceeding with the driveway. I then set up a meeting later on in the summer with two of the members of the highway department, and they were supportive of allowing the driveway as long as we met their conditions that Jackie specified that were in their comments. Their concern is they just want to make sure that the stormwater is going to traverse the existing swale effectively. They said that basically they would maintain the structure, keep it clean as part of their normal work that they do for the swale. And ultimately said as long as we have something engineered properly, that they would fully support it. With regard to both of these plans, the protected wetland area is not changed between them. It's the same amount of buffer to the wetland. It's a matter of some of it being within the open space versus some of it being covenanted buffers within the parcel meets and bounds. The buffers that Jackie showed, one thing she didn't mention is although they are slightly outside of the 75 and 100 foot buffers in some areas, they also are exceeded in others. So to me, it's an average width of 75 feet on the one lot, lot one, and an average width of about 100 feet on lot two, which is what the Conservation Board would seek to do in a situation similar to this. With regard to the wetland setback to the driveway on lot two for the escape to Seven Ponds Town Road, 83 feet by chapter 325 should be an acceptable setback. 325-7 subsection 14 allows for pervious driveways at 75 feet as long as they're not impacting the wetlands. This would be a pervious gravel driveway that is at a maximized wetland setback. We would have basically be a 14-foot driveway with within the 20-foot driveway area with 2 feet of plantings on either side. This is wooded area beyond this that is providing suitable drainage and absorption of any runoff. However, there shouldn't be any runoff because it would be a pervious driveway. So in my mind, that should not be an issue because it does meet the recommendations of chapter 325. So as Jackie indicated, there's 2 open space cluster plans. My client prefers to have this plan that's before you right here with some of the buffers located on the properties. This open space plan preserves basically 65.56% of the property as town dedicated open space versus the other plan, which is 70%. So it's less than 5%, 4.5% difference in the overall property size. It's 16,493 square foot difference that would be adjusted between the 2 lots, just as part of the meets and bounds of those parcels. One thing that could be done to ensure the town that those would not be disturbed would be for the potential installation of a split rail fence at the edge. Since on lot 2, Jackie, maybe you can show them the edge of natural vegetation right now. Yeah, so pretty much all of lot 2 is naturally vegetated. So if we were to do something to demarcate the edge of that buffer to ensure the town that that would not be cleared, most specifically on that lot, because that would be the most important one. The lot 1, which is existing developed, would we would do some revegetation within those existing cleared areas within the parcel to accommodate those buffers. The
Right,
one,
were those clear? I just want to ask you if those areas were cleared by the owner of this property.
no, those are pre-existing clearing. The owner did clear out a bunch of landscape debris on this property about 2 years ago with a wetlands permit from Marty Shea. That was deposited over time by the prior owner. There was piles of all kinds of landscape debris, as in woody debris and piles of leaves. So those were all removed by this owner to benefit the health of the wetland and the buffering area outside of it. Additionally, they installed an innovative alternative on-site wastewater treatment system, which is shown on all of our plans. It was installed a few years ago for the existing residents. It was oversized and located as far away from the existing house as possible to be able to accommodate expansion of development on this property. Obviously, the new development would also accommodate an IA system, as this is in a high priority area for the town.
The county requires it now, Daphne.
Not until July.
Yeah, but the house hasn't been built yet.
Right. Nonetheless, the septic system would be up to the current specifications, the best specifications, especially in these wetland and high groundwater areas. What else? I think I basically said most of what I wanted to say.
So I did want to just show the planning board what Daphne was talking about. If you can see here, because the wetland line is up here in this location, I didn't mention that this buffer plan does capture additional beyond this required 75 feet. So if you see, this is the 75 feet here that's on the radius. They did provide additional area here, if you'll see there. And then the same thing they did here, they kind of squared it out rather than following the radius. So I did want to note that. Sorry, I forgot to mention that.
I mean, the wetlands, the buffer protection is identical on both plans regardless. You know, I would support the applicant's preference only because it's consistent with the 60, it's consistent with our 247 specs of 65%. You know, reaching beyond that, I feel we need, it would entail special circumstances, which I don't see here because the wetland protection is identical in both maps. So, you know, I'm okay with the applicant's cluster, and I'm fully supportive of what you call the exit driveway, the emergency driveway to exit this property. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, now that
Does property flood?
I agree.
Daphne, does this property flood?
Does it flood? It not the developed upland areas, no.
Oh, I know the property.
I haven't seen, because this has been going on for about like a year and a half, 2 years now. I haven't seen any flooding, and I always kind of, you know, as I'm going on other site visits, I always kind of like check over there, and sometimes I'll pull in. I haven't seen any evidence of flooding in this area. This definitely has, you know, the potential, but that's why it's so heavily engineered here. I believe that the stormwater that's taken at this intersection here is essentially passively going this way and then basically going into a low-lying area. So we definitely don't want to impede that. Dennis, I mean, I was under the same, I agree with you, as far as compliance with 325, both plans do provide for the required buffers. I mean, we can talk a little bit about those small radiuses more at the final application stage, but, the difference of 16,000 square feet, obviously it's nice to have everything open space. The only other thing, Daphne, I think that you didn't touch upon was just that they really do want to retain the existing residents. And with the existing location, that additional linear feet to get to the property line would give them more of an ability to redevelop this portion, but keep the house where it is rather than redeveloping the entire site. I think they were anticipating an addition. So that was just one thing, Daphne, you had touched upon. I don't know if you want to elaborate.
Yeah, thank you. That is the one thing that I did neglect to discuss. On both of the maps, we are requesting a reduction in the principal rear yard setback for R40 setbacks from 70 feet down to 50 feet. On this map that's in front of you, it just gives them an expanded development area, a little bit more flexibility if they were to do some additions to the existing residence with expansion that way. On the other map, what it does is it encompasses the entire residence within that 50 feet, because when you take that 50 feet off of the edge of the buffer, which is essentially the lot line on the other map, it traverses a portion of the existing residence. So whichever way it goes, we would like to seek that 50-foot rear yard setback just on lot 1 to just give them some zoning flexibility without the need to go to the zoning board in the future. All of the other setback requirements for accessory and principal structures are within the R40 zoning setback. So they're compliant.
And they would not in any way intrude on this covenanted naturally vegetated non-disturbance buffer?
No, and quite honestly, with that 50-foot reduction, you see that arrow that Jackie's right next to there? Right next to that arrow is the 100-foot arc, which would be the required setback on an existing developed parcel. So it would not impede upon the required wetland setback.
This is the 50 that they're showing, and then this is the 100-foot. But on this lot, because it's existing developed, they're required to provide 75-foot.
Okay.
75-foot buffer with a 100-foot development setback.
Yes, yeah, and so the development setback is right here.
Daphne, one of the things I'm looking for is the removal of the remnants of that old fence along Seven Ponds Town.
Yes.
So I don't know if your surveyor indicated that on your survey, or it's shown on the map, but if it's not, we should get it marked and identified by your surveyor so we can impose a condition to have it removed.
Yes, the fence is shown on the map. We are not citing the removal of it, but we have discussed this in the past, and my client is amenable to the removal of that dilapidated fence.
Yeah, okay.
And it would be part of the open space.
Yeah, we can't take the open space with the fence anyway, so.
Yeah, so Dennis, that is one of the recommendations. The applicant will be required to remove the roadside fence, which is in disrepair, prior to submission of the final application or prior to signature of the final plat. So if you wanted to come down sooner or later, you can have it come down prior to final application. And then I also asked that all the existing fencing on lower Seven Ponds Town, which is really like the road frontage on the south, that they be reduced to 4 feet.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Jackie, sorry. I think you.
Did you up to the recommendations?
Sure. Yeah, I was just about to say that. Okay. So number 1 is basically your preferred plan, and is the board comfortable with moving forward with the applicant's preferred plan and buffering?
I am.
Is there a consensus with the rest of the board?
I would do a consensus, but it's not necessary. I think that I'll defer to Dennis's argument. Okay. I always prefer open space rather than a covenanted buffer, but.
I do as well. Jackie, one of my suggestions would be is that we could also look at it as a conservation easement.
Good.
So that's a little stronger. It wouldn't be open space, but it would be stronger than a buffer that can be possibly amended through a covenant amendment.
Good, I like that.
Okay, so if you'd like,
I'd be comfortable with that.
okay, so if you'd like, I can add that into here, that it's the applicant's preferred plan, but instead of a buffer, we would require a conservation easement
Okay,
to
great.
include the wetland area. Okay,
Define with a split rail fence.
yes, and I can add split rail fence. Yeah. Let me write that.
Okay, so we have to move along here, Jackie. We are.
Yes. Sorry, I just want to write down.
What
split
to
rail.
do. And we're-
Okay, so the next one is planning board shall consider the covenant amendment for the planning board's preferred plan, so I'll add that in. New York State DEC to see if it's any threatened or endangered species. Planning board recommends a cluster plan subject to R40 zoning dimensional regulations, and one could consider that full dimensional relief at the final application stage. 29239B, which is the standard final application referral with covenanted conditions and conservation easement. The Conservation Board did recommend the 100-foot buffer for both residences. I did want to discuss that, but is the board amenable with just sticking with the 75 for the developed and the 100 for the non-developed?
There's no way they can make 100 on both?
Well, the problem is with the 100 is that existing residence is very set far back. And the code only requires 75. So going the 100 would be going beyond what 325 requires.
Okay, so you're suggesting 100 and a 75.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll change that if you're comfortable. I just wanted to discuss that specifically. Next is that the applicant shall allow those areas to passively revegetate or provide a re-veg plan, shall require the innovative alternative on-site wastewater treatment system. I did say unless it's required by health department at the time of final conditional approval. The applicant is proposing the driveway. Superintendent of Highway is asking for the design of the driveway culvert and shall comply with their comments of December 8th, 2020. Applicant shall require take down the fence. Applicant shall reduce the fence along lower 7 ponds to 4, compliance with town engineer comments, comply with superintendent of highway comments, submission of the common driveway plan, which we do have already a version on here. Test hole to be updated in compliance with Conservation Board. Submit all the legal documents at the final application stage. Phase A, 1A and 1B archaeological assessment since it's in the New York State archaeologically sensitive area. Compliance with fire prevention, street numbers, a short form environmental assessment since it's an unlisted action, and standard health department and final application.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? We have a motion to accept the draft as revised. Motion by Zuccarelli, second by Phil, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matthew, 76 Montauk Highway, the seasonal produce store.
Yes, Charles, can you let in Rob Marcinsick, please? Now I'll get the screen up.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So everyone's familiar. We've had this for a while. We've seen it as the ZBA referral. We've seen it as a pre-submission. This is for a 193-foot expansion to an existing seasonal produce store. It's not, per se a straight farm stand as it appears. It's a little bit different because it benefits from a pre-existing CO. I have a draft staff report and an approval to go through. Rob might have a couple comments, but if everybody's ready, just a brief overview of the plan here. So what's proposed now is an entry point here, angled parking, and exit here with 7 spaces, handicapped, a small unloading area because the applicant, states, he comes in with his small truck to bring the produce in. So just noting the kind of delivery area and seasonal display here and here. This is what the existing stand looks like. Essentially, the addition will be over here. It'll match the existing. These are some rudimentary plans that have been drawn up. Pretty simple asphalt shingles, 2 and 11 plywood on a concrete slab. And then I will get reading. Pretty much gave you guys the overview. That's at 76 Montauk Highway in West Hampton. This is across from the hotel where that proposed miniature golf course is on the other side of the highway. It was an unlisted action. The planning board was lead agency and adopted a condition negative declaration in 2017. It limited the operation to 9 months and restricted the items that could be sold here. Also prevented the sale of alcohol, tobacco products, firearms, and games of chance. Precluded winterization and required site plan approval with the expansion. They did get the variance for the expansion in 2017 also. The conditions of the variances mimic the condition negative declaration. There was no hearing at the final application stage. This has been heard many times. So the planning board waived that. Referrals, pretty standard comments from the town engineer. They just need some mapping changes. They need spot elevations for the ADA space, 2% grade. They're recommending a curb cut permit from the Suffolk County Department of Public Works if that's required. They need to show materials, construction details, and the engineering fee of $2,500. No comment was received from the Suffolk County Department of Public Works. Fire prevention had no requirements, and they advised that they'd address fire safety at the building department. West Hampton Fire District, they had no comments. Architectural Review Board reviewed this back on January 5th and had no issues and recommended approval. No comments were received from CAC West. The Planning Commission found this was a matter for local determination. The Highway Department did note this was on a previous version of the plan that had issues with the drainage. The drainage has been revised, and the town engineer has recommended approval based on the change. So site plan, as I said, this has 7 spaces. The recommendation I'm going to make is to eliminate one of these spaces. So there's 6 standard and 1 handicap, just so they could provide a van adjacent width area. And they just need to revise the curb stops so they're at the 60 degrees for the angled parking rather than the 90 degrees that's shown. They also need to provide parking calculations on the plan. As noted, they'll come in on the western side. It's a U, and then go back out on the eastern curb cut. And they'll have to provide just signage that shows, an entrance and an exit one way, do not enter, etc. And a condition of approval will be to attain all required permits from the Department of Public Works, the Suffolk County Department of Public Works, if required. The delivery area is via that existing, it's a pretty rudimentary curb cut on Percy Avenue. It's not improved. This is going to be controlled via, a chain stop on posts. And I'm just recommending that the applicant include some signage that denotes that as a delivery area and that there should be no parking. Landscaping is pretty appropriate. So what they're going to do to control the access, instead of doing islands, they're going to have wooden planters, which I think will look nice. It's sort of a low-tech solution to the parking problem that's on site. Would the board like to see details of those planter boxes as part of the plans?
I think if you see them, Matt, and think they're okay because you've been close to this.
Okay. There's no lighting details that were provided. The applicant's not representing that there's any lighting on site. We'll include our standard lighting conditions. If they're going to make any changes, that they have to be dark skies compliant and 3,000 Kelvin or less. I noted that the Architectural Review Board has approved the architecture. Outdoor display. They show the 3 areas. One was to the north of the parking area, and the other 2 are by the stand. Prohibition of additional outdoor storage without planning board approval will be a condition of approval. The town engineer approved the drainage. In terms of the handicap, we spoke about that just to show the appropriate grade and to show the van adjacent width area. They don't have any sign details. Would you guys like to review the signs if one ever came in?
Yes.
Okay, I'll have that as a condition. I wrote it that way. Mechanicals, they all have to be screened. That's a standard condition. And if there's a dumpster on site, they have to comply with the town code. And
thank you.
Recommendations.
Ron Morrison,
I
Ron,
have
do you have
conditions, but Rob might want to speak to some stuff.
all
Can
okay?
you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Rob Marcinsic, O'Shea Marcinsic and Bruin for the applicant. The only comment I have is with respect to the requirement for elevations prepared by a design professional. As Matt was saying, I mean, basically, it's, we submitted some plans or elevations or whatever. It's 193 square foot addition to what is essentially, for all intent and purposes, a shed. The existing construction is very simple, and the addition will be just as simple. It's not an elaborate addition by any means. It's basically 2x4s with T111 siding on it, on a concrete slab. It's going to look exactly like what is already there. So we're just asking that you dispense with the requirement that that we submit elevations prepared by a design professional.
I think that's fair for 193 square feet. And I think if it's going to be just like what's there,
Correct.
it's going to work.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm good
Otherwise,
with it.
okay. Okay, good. So do you want to read your resolved, Matt?
Absolutely. I can go through the conditions. Changes to the plan, as I said, provide spot elevations for the parking area, provide drainage for the stone parking area. That was a recommendation of the town engineer. Spot elevations for the handicap spot, show those curb stops at 60 degrees, eliminate one traditional space and provide an 8-foot ADA van adjacent area, provide parking calculations, note the material of proposed delivery unloading area and seasonal outdoor display, note the location of appropriate signage for one-way entrance, wrong way, do not enter sign at the exit. Note the location of signage at Percy Avenue for the delivery zone, dumpster locations if applicable. Then the details we'll need is construction detail for drainage, gravel parking and area in the asphalt, handicap signage, and then all the signage that I already mentioned, and the dumpster if there is one, and lighting details if there are any changes to the lighting. General conditions are what we always have, signage subject to planning board approval, that the HVAC or any kind of mechanicals are screened. No dusk to dawn lighting fixtures, no additional lighting on the property without planning board approval. All lighting is 3,000 Kelvin or less and dark skies compliant. Non-conforming lighting is eliminated. No additional outdoor storage, display, or sales permitted without planning board approval. All required permits from the DPW, if applicable. That's prior to the issuance of the building permit. Engineering fee and pre-construction meeting with engineering. And then prior to signature, I will strike 3A, which was for those scaled elevations. And then B would become A, which is the affidavit, and C is submission of 6 sets of plan for signature.
Can I ask a question? Are you allowed to have a porta potty on this property?
Yeah, this was discussed at pre-submission, Robin. We recommended that the applicant go to the Department of Health. He did that. They have no issue. It's not part of their review. So as long as it's there and being taken care of properly, there's not an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if no further discussion, a motion to approve after a long time. Phil, motion by Phil, second by Robin, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Okay.
All right.
Approved.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good afternoon. Stay
Thank
safe.
you. Thank you, Matt, for hanging in. all
No
that
problem.
time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Claire, you have the Minogue or Minogue pools. It's maintenance bond. Is Claire here?
Yep, I'm sorry. When I put the thing on, the sun was in my eyes a lot, so I had to stop. Minogue is to release the maintenance bond for landscaping. Everything's in order.
Okay. Motion by
Motion.
Phil, second by Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Jackie, the old file map, is this the trail?
Yeah.
You're muted. Jackie,
Sorry.
you're okay.
Yeah, this is the trail.
Okay.
So I'm just going to share the screen and I'll be right back.
And this is where the trail was going to go through the property, and now.
Yeah, so the Trails Advisory Board had asked for it along the edge of Broadway. The Trails Advisory Board met January 5th. So the pink was where the Trails Advisory Board was asking for it. We had this discussion in December. We forwarded the concerns to the Trails Advisory Board, and they did revise their comments. They understood the applicant's concerns with the Understanding though that the northern portion of Lot 8 would be dedicated as open space. They basically weighed in on both issues and they found that the northern portion of Lot 8 being dedicated to the town is more important than allowing for this additional trail link to the trails. And they are going to keep seeking an additional access point to the public road to the west of this area. So it's just, you know, it's difficult, and they were trying to take the opportunity to get access through here for a neighborhood trail. So just to remind the board, the northern portion of open space for 8 would be this area. So I have amended the resolution, which was in your packet, and I'll read to you the Trails Advisory Board comments, and then we can move on. So first and foremost, we'd like to stress the importance of the town obtaining the title to part of Lot 8 north of the power lines as permanent open space, as previously stated, and the added open space would be valuable addition to the extensive open space to the north. Presently, a private owned parcel just to the north blocks public access to Split Rock Road Trail. Having the town ownership of the northern part of Lot 8 would allow a trail branching from Split Rock Road Trail to the east and north of the power lines without interruption. As an amendment of our previous memorandum, we agree to withdraw our request for trail easement along Broadway and not make any request for trail connection from Edgewoods Road along Broadway up to the town-owned land. As agreed at January 5th meeting, this request for trail easement is contingent on ownership of the portion of Lot 8 north of the power lines being successfully transferred to the town of Southampton. And then I amended the resolution to take out some stuff that I discussed with the applicant, which includes that 10 and then 15-foot wide trail along Broadway. The only thing we do want to touch upon though is to make sure the planning board is comfortable with moving forward with a waiver subdivision review, which essentially would have to facilitate this. I've gone over this with Kathleen and Dave Wilcox and the Gazas both, Blair and Joe Gaza. Actually, and Charles, are they in? Sorry, I forgot to ask. But is the planning board comfortable moving forward with a waiver subdivision for this northerly portion? Because this is very important for the trail access. And if so, I would draw it up for the February 11th meeting.
Who do you need in?
The Gazas, sorry, Blair Gaza.
Sure, got it.
I'm not sure if Marla Schwenk is there too. She has been trying.
Okay, well, I think Jackie pretty much spelled out.
Yeah.
Does anybody on the board have any questions about this?
I'm comfortable with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a really good compromise.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
Great. Okay, so with that compromise, we can issue the resolution, and I'm just going to bring on the waiver request for this portion at the next February 11th meeting.
So what do you want us to do? Any action here?
Yes, let's please amend the resolution as it prepared.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion by Gloria and second by Zuccarelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. So the amendment's approved. And next week you'll bring on whatever. We've already done it, Blair and Joe.
Yeah, so we'll bring on the waiver of the subdivision for the February 11th meeting.
Okay. The amendment's been approved.
Thank you.
You.
See, the less you say, Joe.
Oh, that hurt, Phil. That was.
I want to get back on the good graces with the board. You know, it's my favorite board, and we've been having some wrinkles lately, but I'm trying to change things around.
Ironing them out.
You're not used to having no said to you, so.
No, that's not true. I live with.
Okay. We're moving to Jackie. You have a site disturbance application.
Yes, I do.
Bright East Hills, lot 30.
Yep. So this is a site disturbance application. I've been working with them since 2016. Let me just get the information up.
Well, have you seen it? You know, but
I have. I've seen it. It looks good. So yeah, if the board wants to move on, that's fine. I went there twice, once in the fall and again just recently in January, and they added the plantings that I asked for, and they're ready to go, and then they can get their CC for the property.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve this site
Motion.
disturbance? Motion by Phil, second by Gloria, and all in favor. Extension, 6 in favor, 1 absent. We have Claire, are you here?
I
Claire,
am.
do you want EMC and MTG quickly to?
Oh, no, it's okay. I had to write it and I ran out of time. So we'll put it
Okay,
in
all
February.
right. So we'll take that off. We
Yes.
have a few more signatures. So we have 3 more. Is Janice going to do the town board referral on amending the code?
I just emailed her and let's see if she's around. I'll text her also.
Okay, if she wants some time, we can go do the
Yeah, let's go to the Hampton.
business district, the traffic
And then I'll
report.
text her in the meantime.
Okay. Is Ray Tobias here?
I'm going to see if he's available. If he's in here. Yes.
Claire, I can quickly see if Janice is around, since I'm on the 3rd floor.
That'd be great if you could. Thank you. And Patty's also texted her. So yes, if you could let Ray is in, he's an attendee. And then of course I gave you the very long football team to be let in. So I gave you a copy of
Who
the.
else needs to come in? Sorry.
Okay, so, you okay?
Who else needs to come in?
Oh, Kristen McCabe.
Okay.
Toronto.
Okay.
And
Ray is here.
I have the list. Greg Reckler.
Got it.
Paul Going.
Got it.
Ethan Chakowski. I'm sorry about that. Eric Meehan. Steve Narada from Arius Design. Brad Griggs. And Michael Keller.
God, we should charge by the head.
Right.
As I said, we received the traffic analysis late last week, early this week, and I forwarded to you. We forwarded it to Ray Tobias, who's here, who's taken a quick look at it. And I know there's been a little bit of back and forth between them trying to address some of the issues. So I think the last we left it, you had reviewed Ray's comments, and the applicant had said that they would address them in order to get a more complete picture of the traffic review for the project. So if you want, maybe how's the best way to do this? Maybe Ray.
Yeah, I can give you an update of where we stand and what happened since we were before you at the last meeting, which was on December 17th, which seems like a long time ago, but it wasn't. Just to recap, at that meeting, we had conducted an initial review of their traffic assessment. They had made revisions, and that was done on the 14th of December. They had made revisions on the 16th of December, and then we had the first hearing. We went over some of our initial comments on it. Just to recap those comments, they had done a trip generation comparison with the prior study, the 2011 traffic study that was done for the airport PDD. So their initial assessment was based on trips, just number of trips generated for each use in the PDD, including this site and the adjacent site at 230 Rogers Way, which has not been developed. That would complete the development of the PDD. So the initial approach was to do a trip generation and compare that to the trips approved after the 2011 traffic study for the site. Our initial comments talked about we really need specific trip generation for this type of facility. Since it's a sorting facility, it's a relatively new usage. The data that's normally used nationally by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, or ITE, was not really applicable here because for that particular type of use, there was a lack of information. So we had asked them to get data from a similar site, preferably on Long Island, that was being used by the occupant of the proposed facility So get some site-specific data, and let's look at the trips generated by that. And the initial approach too also noted that the peak activity at the site, which is important, would occur in the late morning when van drivers arrived at the site, parked their cars, picked up vans, got in line at the facility to pick up packages and left to deliver. And then the other peak time during a typical day would be after the evening peak hour on the highway. So that would be when they return to the facility to drop off their empty vans and pick up their cars and go home, which would be after the typical highway peak hour. We also requested an update of traffic counts, because that 2011 traffic study was based on counts that were probably taken in 2010, which is over 10 years ago. So I think we all know that traffic has changed somewhat in the last 10 years in the town. And it would be a good idea, based on the size of this PDD, to confirm that that's really what's happening, and the data that they're using, or they were using, was appropriate. So we said, you've got two main access points to the site on County Road 31. That's at Collins Way, and also a driveway north of that to the site, which would be at the north end of the site, directly to County Road 31. That driveway was just an ingress only, so only traffic coming in would come in that way. There's another driveway minor that would handle the tractor trailer deliveries per day, which typically occur overnight. And there were 14, I believe, tractor trailer deliveries associated with this facility on a typical day. So we requested an update of the traffic counts at those two intersections on County Road 31, and to do some intersection capacity analysis to make sure that there won't be any problems in terms of traffic backups at those intersections when the facility operates. We also asked for an update of the traffic accident data, which is also 10 years old, just to see if there's any existing problems or anything that might be, any condition that might be made worse by the facility. So that's basically what we asked for. And as I noted, new traffic counts were requested, so that required the applicant to go out and take traffic counts along County Road 31. So that required some time. Last Friday, which was the 25th of January, they submitted a revised traffic analysis. I made some initial comments, just key items on, I guess that's Tuesday of this week. And today we've gone back and forth a little bit, asked for some additional info. Today was the last submission of information this morning. So what they did, just to give you a brief synopsis or brief summary of what they did, they looked at a facility in Shirley in the town of Brookhaven. It's off the Long Island Expressway at the William Floyd Parkway interchange, where Amazon occupied an existing building, repurposed it for this particular purpose, and actually has been in operation. I don't believe they're at full capacity yet, but they were able to provide some information from that facility. That building's a little bit bigger than the one that's proposed here. As I said, it's an existing building that was repurposed. But it's similar in operation. So that was relevant in terms of what we were looking for. So in addition to the traffic counts, the accident analysis that they've provided, the material they've submitted satisfies the scope of our comments. So basically what we asked for, they have provided. So now we have, as I mentioned, we just have data coming in this week to look at. There's a lot of the traffic capacity analysis, which looks at the capacity of the intersection, the potential backups you might have, and comes out with summarizes the level of service at each intersection. As I mentioned the last time, level of service is kind of like a report card for the intersection that goes from A through F A being the best and F being failure. So we need to really go through that analysis. There's a lot of printout. And when I say that, there's assumptions that are made in inputting the information into that analysis. It's all done by computer, but there's a lot of assumptions in terms of widths of lanes, phasing of a traffic signal, and there's a traffic signal at the Collins Way intersection. So it requires detailed checking because there is sometimes some subjective reasons or subjective reasoning that goes into making some of the assumptions. So we need to go through that in detail, make sure that's appropriate. The key things to consider in actually going forward, assuming that's correct or assuming our comments are minor, the key things that you need to keep in mind, and we've mentioned this before, as I said, the facility is going to generate peak activity in the late morning and early evening hours. That's the projection. And we need to make that you need to make that a condition of approval, because if there's any variation in that and their peak activity slides into the highway peak hour, you could have some traffic backups that are unanticipated. So it's really just confirming what the assumptions that were made in the study and actually confirming the operation, that this operation is similar to what's going on in Shirley. In addition, you might want to consider that the number of vans by Amazon drivers that they've anticipated is consistent with what's included in the study and the revised study, which actually looked at increasing the number to be consistent with both what was found at Shirley and also seasonal projections. So their traffic intersection capacity analysis that we'll be reviewing was done both for the summertime when highway traffic is highest. Meanwhile, the facility is probably at a typical rate. And then also in the holiday season, they made projections for numbers of vehicles attracted in the Christmas season or immediately before and after Christmas, when deliveries at the facility are higher while traffic on the existing highway network is lower. So those are two conditions we want to look at to make sure that there's no inconsistencies or that we've got a true assessment of what impacts the facility might have in terms of traffic. Two other things to note, we're anticipating comments from the County Department of Public Works since they maintain County Road 31. I believe they've already provided the comments, which I believe have been addressed. And the other item is the main route for tractor trailers to and from this facility will be from Sunrise Highway to the exit for County Road 31, and then traveling south, I think it's 1.5 miles roughly from the interchange to the facility. So what's required, because tractor trailers can be provided or used on Sunrise Highway as per DOT permits, the connection on County Road 31 by tractor trailers will require a designation by DOT as an access highway for tractor trailers. So I believe that's in the process of being applied for. That being said, I think that's a pretty good, at least summary of where we are. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
So Ray, you need more time, I'm assuming, to go over the charts. It was a very extensive report. So you're going to be needing some more time to review the charts, I would think, yes?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So we also talked a little bit about, this might not be specific to the traffic, but we did talk about no aviation connection, right? That we'd make that a connection because that could, in fact, increase traffic by increasing merchandise.
Yeah, that's important. I understand that's a condition of the PDD. So, you know, you might want to when somebody goes back 10 years from now, if there's any thought of changing that condition for the PDD, that there's a reference here that's, that's a condition also of approval or of to justify the assumptions made in the and presented in the traffic analysis.
Okay.
If I may, Chairman,
Yes, I can't see who's speaking.
it's Guy. Can you?
Oh, Guy, yes, I see you. I see you.
I'm
Yes.
just, I'm up in the corner there.
Oh,
If I may, I agree that with Ray and I've spoken to Kathleen about this, that, the PD doesn't permit the use of air freight on the site. But I've spoken with the owners, and they would agree that if the board feels like they need a little more certainty about that, we would consider a condition on the approval that prohibited the use of air freight, or whatever else the board might deem appropriate.
Perhaps a
Give everybody
covenant in
comfort.
addition would be helpful to give the board that certainty.
Yeah, I think we would agree to that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask a question? You said you were using the Shirley facility to do some comparisons of usage and such. Is the Shirley facility expandable? Because this property does have capacity, I believe, Guy, to expand even more so. Does the Shirley facility have that expandability such that we could get some estimates or not?
Are you addressing that to me, Robin?
I'm addressing it to whoever I made the basis of the Shirley, the comparison on the Shirley facility.
Well,
So, Guy, Brad Griggs is on, if you'd like me to field
hi,
that.
Brad. That's a good.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm Brad Griggs, a senior manager on Amazon's economic development team. I think I've appeared before you before, but just want to reiterate. As far as the expandability, all of our sites are built in that manner, where we build in capacity so that for the bulk of the year, it's going to operate at a certain level. And then we have the ability to increase operations at the site around our peak season from the middle of November to the middle of January around the holidays. That coincides with, sort of the traditional retail cycle of expanded operations at that period, where we know there are going to be additional holiday shopping occurring. And so that's why there's the level of parking. That's why the size of the facility is the way that it is. It allows us to not have to find temporary space, to not have to find additional parking. So we build in that capacity within the space itself to allow for us to expand beyond, or to expand to that point to meet our demand at the end of the year period. And so similarly at Shirley, we have that capability. And so around the time of peak season, as we refer to it, that period from mid-November to mid-January, we have increased staffing availability. And that's when we utilize the parking to the highest extent possible to have the vans and to have the delivery capacity we need at that time. And so there is that period there where we will have increased traffic in through the site at that time. And we will have vans leaving the site slightly earlier and leaving the site slightly later than what is the rest of the year as it's been outlined previously to the board.
So Brad, if I could just add to that quickly. My name's Ethan Chikoski. I'm with Blank Traffic. I prepared the report that Ray described. In the report, it's very detailed. I'm sure everyone hasn't read through it all yet, other than Ray. We did describe steady state operations, which was, the operations plan provided by Amazon that had, distribution of hours and vans at different times and when they're expected to come. And then we also looked at given information that we received for the Shirley site for the November-December period, an increase in traffic, and we evaluated that for the holiday period. So I just want to make sure it's clear that that was evaluated in our report for both scenarios.
Thank
So,
you.
Board Member Long, does that answer
Yes,
your
it does.
question there? Okay, thank you.
Yes, I thank you.
I would just, if I could jump in, just urge Amazon to do a site-specific evaluation of what constitutes peak season in the Hamptons. And I'll give you a hint, it's not the beginning, it's not early December.
No,
Christmas notwithstanding.
Again, I'll add, we also look at
no,
summer traffic in our
being
evaluation
being
with
from
an
Long
increase in
Island,
events
I
during
get that.
period.
No, understood. And being from Long Island, I completely understand the seasonality of the Hamptons area, but this site would also be facilitating other areas of Southern Long Island and through the North Fork. And so there is a traditional seasonality, even if, you know, the malls and the retail centers out there are probably a little bit busier during the summer months, to put it mildly. Our cycles still allow for that sort of expansion where we're not going to exceed those numbers beyond what's in the report during the traditional peak time.
From what I'm understanding, Dennis, their seasonality, they're talking about the usage by Amazon versus our seasonality, which is our added traffic when we hit the summer.
Well, the demand for their
seasonalities.
The demand for the Amazon services is certainly going to be exponentially larger in the summer months, when at some point life is going to return to normal, and December is when a lot of these people are going to be in the Caribbean or wherever they go. They won't be here ordering packages from Amazon.
Yeah.
But in July, they'll all be here and they'll want their Amazon packages.
Yeah, again, we included a higher demand for van traffic during both the summer months and the December months in our report. And, you know, obviously Ray has to go through the details, but we did find, you know, in summary, that in the build condition, it's still, you know, we're still at acceptable levels of service at that intersection and the surrounding intersections. You know, it wasn't causing an issue, was what our report summarized.
So I have a question, since you're here, Guy. It's kind of a parallel question, doesn't necessarily relate to traffic, but it has come up in discussion. The lease document that you have with the county, is that included in the PDD documents?
It's
And
not-
I have a specific question about it in terms of liability to the town or liability to the Recklers in any kind of violation.
No, the lease, it's a ground lease. So that lease in that lease runs, the Recklers actually, and you can look at it this way, for purposes of operations, construction, seeking permits, they are the owner, if you will, under a lease. Look at it that way. And the county has ceded all of that control to the Recklers in the lease.
Okay, so if there is some kind of major violation, it goes to the Recklers, it doesn't go to the town.
Correct.
Okay, we just needed some clarity on that. Great. Thank you, I'm glad you were here.
Okay, so I think that I'm hearing that Ray needs time to really look at it.
Right.
He's making some initial comments that there'll be some conditions related to the project, but for now he doesn't see any red flags, right? Am I kind of hearing that?
That's correct.
Okay. So
can I ask a quick question there? I mean, of Ray. I mean, Ray, do you feel you have sufficient quality of information to proceed?
That's correct. What we've asked for, they've provided. So they've met the, so to speak, the scope or the content of what we asked for has been provided. Now it's checking the details and checking the, like I said, the computations they have numerous inputs that go into them. It's a great program, but there's a lot of input that you got to put in terms of lane widths, the actual flow of traffic, like is the peak traffic and the peak hour, is that consistent every 15 minutes? Or is there a big let out of traffic that would make it inconsistent for the hour in terms of flow. So there's all kinds of factors like that, lane widths, truck percentages. So it has to be checked carefully. But they're actually great programs that are developed, and they're used nationally. They're not, this isn't just something for this area. These are nationally accepted capacity analysis programs for intersections.
So these
Great,
last
great, thank
mile programs called a last mile warehouse, right? Distribution center. And we have a parallel example someplace else in Shirley, you mentioned, right? Ray?
Yeah, that's what we've been told.
Oh, okay. So same size, same number of vehicles, same road conditions. Is it apples to apples or not?
It's roughly the same size. There's different access in Shirley. Shirley site is located in the southeast quadrant of the intersection of William Floyd Parkway and the Long Island Expressway. It was a large industrial development that's partially vacant but partially built. It was approved years ago by the town of Brookhaven. Access to that site is directly from the East Service Road of the Long Island Expressway, east of William Floyd Parkway. And that's to get in, and to leave the site, you can't get on the service road there because it ends, because there's some wetland issues with the Carbons River. So to leave the site, you go directly onto William Floyd Parkway with a ramp from the industrial park.
Okay.
And that's just south of the interchange with the Long Island Expressway.
Okay.
So any trucks or most people leaving the site would probably get on that slip ramp and go a short distance and then make their movement at the Long Island Expressway. They're very close.
So they're not wending their way through small streets and as they would be on the east end of Long Island. That's why I ask you if there's apples to apples, because the east end of Long Island is just unique in its road structure. Though something may be called a highway, it's also the main street of a small hamlet. So I appreciate the fact that you're taking a very close look.
Yeah, and this facility is in a good location because it's directly, you get onto the county road. There's not residences directly on the county road. There are some to the west. There's a condominium development, I believe it is, just west, opposite the site. It's set back a little bit to the west. But the access pretty much for most motorists would be going out of the site right onto Sunrise Highway. This is both employees, van drivers, and employees of the warehouse and tractor trailers. So, they're on a major roadway. They're not cutting through, and there's no cut through traffic. We also reviewed the Syosset facility for the town of Oyster Bay, the traffic impact on that one. And that has the options for some cut through traffic, which had to be addressed, cutting through local streets because the expressway is very congested there, and so are the service roads in that area. So that had to be looked at. But this, in terms of the layout of the site or the location, this is a positive thing.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? So Claire, we'll bring this back. Date specific or?
I think Ray's prepared for February 11th, right?
You need more time?
Yeah,
that's the 28th.
That's 2 weeks.
That should be doable. Like I said, it's a lot of work to go through this, and but
if you need more time,
I think I can have comments done before the meeting. That's not a problem. I don't know. I may end up addressing them at the meeting. That's not a problem. I would probably send out comments to Claire ahead of time in terms of any conclusions or anything that's unusual or anything that came up. There are a few things, like I mentioned, that we have to go through. There was a projection of traffic to the summertime based on traffic count data. We have to just look that over, make sure those factors are correct. As Ethan noted, they've increased the number of vans to the facility from the initial report. I think it went up about 15%. So that's that's good. I think we probably, just taking an overview of it and an initial reaction, I think everything's there. Like I said, it's just checking the details of the computations. And the accident history, I didn't mention this, but very, not a lot of accidents in the area at all. And there's no specific type of accident that's a problem that jumps out. They're kind of random. Most of the accidents at the traffic signal on Collins Way were rear end accidents, which are very consistent at any traffic signal. The typical type you expect is a rear end accident where someone stops and someone behind them doesn't stop in time or fails to stop. So don't anticipate anything. It's just a matter of going through it all.
Okay. So Claire, it could be the 11th or the week at the meeting after to give.
Just so you know, I'm on vacation February 25th.
We'd be happy to have it come back on the 11th.
I'm sure you would. It's a question of Ray, and also we read this stuff. I mean, when it came through, we got lost in the charts. So I'm so glad we have a traffic consultant with us, but we do read this stuff. Mm-hmm. So Feb 11, if Ray, if you need.
I would say that's right now that's reasonable. So getting comments at least out some preliminary comments a couple days before to Claire, and they can be forwarded to the applicant so they're aware.
And she'll forward them to the planning board.
Is
So
it reasonable for what we have? I don't know what's on for the 11th, but do we have a heavy schedule that this can't really be discussed or reviewed in time? I sometimes we have a really heavy day and with a lot of things on, and then we just pile on another and we don't really give due diligence to anything. Is the 11th a reasonable day or to do this?
Well, we'll manage the agenda so that we'll plan it accordingly. I mean, I appreciate that.
Okay. Because I want to give it the due respect and the time.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Okay.
Okay, so no action. Thank you very much, Ray. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
For coming.
Thank you.
I'm glad we could do it by Zoom so you didn't have to drive.
Thank you. And
okay, we'll see you in a couple of weeks, maybe.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks, Ray.
Bye.
And then I just want to acknowledge on the canal for signature.
That's on the canal, right? Acknowledge number 19. And there were some other signatures to acknowledge. Jackie, did you get those signed?
You're muted, Jackie.
Sorry, I did have signature for Jack Mauer if you want to do it as an add-on. I was just going to put it on February 11th, but if you're happy to add it,
Yeah,
they were just signed today. Okay. It was Jack Mauer re-signature.
Okay.
Thank you,
Acknowledging
Jackie.
that signature. Has anyone, there's Janice. Hi, Janice.
Hello, I'm here.
She's on a little picture.
You
Hi,
are
I'm over
last, you are last on our agenda, Janice.
good.
So,
Save the best for last, huh?
yeah.
Just kidding. So I am here as a town board referral for Town Code Section 330-167B3, which I know you're all very familiar with. And the goal of the town board is to consider that they may take this over from the Zoning Board of Appeals. The legislative intent basically indicates that the town board as an elective body with discretionary zone change authority is the more appropriate body to review, consider, and determine whether a newly proposed non-conforming use is appropriate. So I'm here to get your thoughts and recommendations on this change.
So they're looking at this change from one non-conforming use to the next as essentially a zone change. I mean, it's.
Yes, it just basically, it is akin to a zone change, and it really is more of something that they want to be able to look at more comprehensively in terms of how they do look at zoning and those parameters. So there was the initial public hearing the other night. They held it over because there was, as you can imagine, there's active applications that are before you, even two that are being under consideration. So they kept it open. So the hearing continues in the first meeting in February. So really it's just about, giving them your thoughts and as a referral.
Let me jump in. Even though the two actions have the outward appearance of zone changes, the applications before the ZBA are markedly different from the discretionary ability of a legislative body to initiate a zone change. And my feeling is that the legislative board, who are extremely subject to the partisan winds of the political environment, should be removed from the specific actions of specific land use actions. They should be charged with the general overall tone and temperament of the town zoning and the town land use. But once you get down into the specifics, once this legislative board assumes the duties of an administrative action, they are bound, they lose that discretion that they otherwise have in zone changes. They are now bound by secret. They're bound by a record that's compiled, and yet at the same time they're evaluating these applications. They're being bombarded from the political environment. Don't do this or don't do that because you're going to have to run for office and we're going to come out against you. It doesn't speak for good land use planning. I would prefer that these applications actually fall to our board. Not that I'm looking to assume more work, but I think the planning board is the one that's best equipped to evaluate and to undertake these applications for change of zone, because they are problematic. And I've always felt for years that the ZBA is not equipped. I don't want to disparage the ZBA, but I don't think they're equipped to properly assess the change of zones, unlike our board, which deals with the master plan and the various updates. And I feel the planning board should really move forward on these. I think the town board is going to be walking into quicksand.
Well, if the town board did take it over, you still do have a referral function to the town board under the zone change procedure. So you still get to weigh in, and as an involved agency too, just to point that out.
Clearest example is with the Hills PDD, there was a massive secret document, all kinds of studies, all kinds of evaluations on that project, which indicated a certain course of action. And at the end of the day, some would argue, I'm not saying taking a position on it, some would argue that the decisions came down to ones of politics. And I think that's what's centered around, is what the litigation is centering around. They've lost, they decided at the 11th hour to let's assume our discretionary role with the zone change, which they basically relinquished when they undertook that extensive secret review. So I'm concerned that process is going to be repeated, and it's going to leave the town board vulnerable to litigation. And I think it's a bad avenue to go down when you have legislative boards doing specific land use actions. It's more of a personal philosophy. Now in Riverhead, the town board does site plans, and they well, the results speak to themselves. So I would much rather see it in a neutral, nonpartisan regulatory board such as ours. I hate to say it, but
I agree with Dennis, all that he said.
Well, it's, let's just say that some of the boards can be political as well, and there are political pressures applied to both ZBA and planning board over the years that I've been on the board.
With longer term limits on a town board. So a town board member could easily, be voted against one way or another, or for.
Let me just go back to the intent of, for me, pre-existing non-conforming. The very first question I was asked when I was interviewed to be on this planning board by Steve Kenny was, well, Jackie, how would you handle pre-existing non-conforming uses? Can you imagine? You know, the learning curve is like this, and I was here. I would do away with pre-existing non-conforming uses completely. The intent of pre-existing non-conforming uses is to do away with a pre-existing non-conforming use, not to make it greater, but to lessen it. We have on the books in the code 330-167, you know, that they can go up to 50% of an expansion. Well, everybody goes to the 50%. Dennis, you and I have talked about this. The percentage should be maybe 10%. We will never do away with pre-existing non-conforming uses with the legislation that we have about that. And that is a municipal discretion. I mean, the state doesn't take that away. I guess it's a legal determination. You know, are we taking away a right from a property owner by not giving them an opportunity to to play down their investments? That's another matter. But as far as, you know, when you see, to me, changing one pre-existing use of non-conforming use to another is almost like a use variance. You know, it's like that threshold, which are very tough to get, versus how the ZBA processes these pre-existing non-conforming applications. You know, they're not held to those standards.
Well, yes, and just as a point, I would say that when establishing a pre-existing non-conforming use is something that maybe should lie with the ZBA in the first place. Like sometimes these things come from an interpretation or something on a CO that then is used as a tool to say, well, look, I had this old CO with cars that or something used to be here and it's not here anymore, but I'm going to say this is my non-conforming use that I'm changing from one to another. And so I don't know, you know, if it's just that who reviews the change or that you even have that first use in the first place. You know, so a lot of these uses are not there really. And they do have a benefit of a CO that maybe that should be something that the ZBA looks at.
But also there's a universal standard there, and that is, does the new non-conforming use drastically affect the community character, the character of the community, the integrity of the community?
Well, every application for a change of non-conforming use comes from the assumption that, hey, we have a noxious use here. We want to change from another to another non-conforming use that's more in keeping with character. You saw, it's right before us now with Stehecki. They're saying, hey, we have a dump here. We want to put up condos. Up the road, there was a terrible junkyard, and now we put in those are the condos up on Major's Path. You know, that went in.
Well, that was a PDD actually.
Yeah, PDD.
Right. But I mean, you can look at that and you can say, all right, you know, X number of acres as a debris tree disposal company versus 120 condominium lots. I mean, there's a major difference between the impact on the community in that.
I mean, can we just back up for a second? I mean, and please stop me if I'm saying something incorrect legally. But my understanding, a non-conforming use arises from the fact that a use existed before there was a code definition.
Right, that's correct.
So now we have a piece of property, and my understanding also is what we were trying to do was to protect a landowner who bought it with a non-conforming use from making his property useless, valueless, having no value. You want to be able to help that landowner who bought a piece of property now that isn't to really the code for that area. And you want to see if he can change that to another use so that there isn't a total taking of his property because we change, I'm just putting the code book down. Because
there is a code, yeah.
Because we changed the code. So we're trying to
But that's presupposing that the use actually currently exists. And
Yeah.
that's part of the problem is
That's where I'm
the
going.
terms under which we really recognize abandonment, I think, you know, when something's truly abandoned or not. And that
Listen,
burden.
that's the easiest excuse to get around.
But
Because someone can go have a cup of coffee
yeah, what I'm
in a
trying,
place that's been abandoned for a year and suddenly it's used.
but
We've had that in front of us.
what I'm trying to get to, okay, is that unfortunately, that definition and what that code section was supposed to be used for has become, I don't want to say a loophole, but a manner in which, in essence, we have been changing the entire zoning for an area by using one non-conforming to another. If I am correct, zoning changes or changing of zoning laws is with the town board. So
That's right.
am I correct? So really what we're doing is we're taking those cases where we're in essence changing the zoning and placing it where the law says zoning changes are supposed to be, which is with the town board.
That's right. And that's the rationale behind it. That's what the town board is saying, that the purview is within their realm. It's not within the ZBA normal area variance, or a use variance proper would still be with the ZBA. This is a special like provision that doesn't rise to the level of use variance per se, as it's defined in town law.
Because what I have to go back to what the whole point of non-conforming use and the people we were trying to protect, the character of the landowner we were trying to protect, and the character of the area we're trying to protect. And I think the argument that the town board is making very persuasively is that this is not what has been happening with this section of the code, this 167B3, is that in essence it's being used now for zoning changes, which is clearly in the purview of the town board.
But they're not discretionary.
Just trying to move it to where it belongs.
No, because they're not discretionary. I would argue, I would presume that many of the large cases, the major land use cases, are against legislative boards doing zone changes. You either have an angry community group saying, oh, they must have taken a bribe, or they, look, we made our case and they just ignored us. Or landowners that say, hey, we made our case and they just ignored us. The legislative boards have that discretion now, and they'd be losing it. They're going to be.
The last time I checked, we get sued also. The last time I checked, we get sued also.
We follow procedure.
Excuse me, but legislating because we're afraid of lawsuits is not exactly what I would prefer to do. The possibility of getting sued by an angry community person or landowner, to me, is not a persuasive reason for not doing the appropriate legislation. I believe that this is under the purview of the town board, and we're just placing it, we're calling it what it is, instead of dressing it up as a non-conforming use.
I think that the way the code has been interpreted, it seems like all of the benefit of that interpretation is going to the person that owns the land, and that they're allowed to do almost anything to make more money, to be more successful, regardless of its effect on the community as a whole. And that's the part, way before I was on the planning board, where I would get so disturbed that we're letting, at some point in time, if you buy a piece of property or you've owned it and you know that it's no longer can be used the way it is, it has to go back to original zoning. So, and I'm not sure the best way to do that, but to me, that's the solution to the problem we're dealing with.
Would you recommend that, like, someone had to say, you had a commercial property in other towns? I know that other you have to go to the zoning board of appeals to establish that your use has not, that you still have that use operating, it's not been abandoned, et cetera. To establish your non-conforming use is there. There's, from what I understand, that's part of this problem. I think, whatever board is looking at it, you still have that major disconnect between, what you say you have and what's really actually existing today in reality versus something that was there. One of the ones you looked at was, Katie gave me an example. Citron 19 was one of the, was an old nightclub that was abandoned, but they demonstrated that like they used it for storage or something. So that meant it was still a valid, but you need to have someone be the arbiter of that. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a town board or if that's a zoning board of appeals function up front, but then.
But the standard that they're not paying attention to results in all of these non-conforming uses continuing to exist. I mean, the fact that a property owner has a non-conforming use, it does not give him legally the right to change it materially to a different use. And so,
well, no, but this is the avenue to do that. And who reviews that? Right now, it's the zoning board of appeals, and you take lead agency or not between uses that come there, like you have right now. But the town board is saying that that belongs with us, and where we want that purview
because they're looking at it as a zone change.
Right.
So
so what will you say? What are some points you would like to make on this? Like I can make, Dennis's point that, it's best to keep it neutral, nonpartisan, non-political. I have, that the new non-conforming use may affect the character and integrity of the community, and that,
one of the standards, that's one of the key standards.
That's
never computed.
But Janice, you hit on the most important aspect. The days of a building inspector scribbling out a pre-existing non-conforming use in his office should be terminated.
Yeah,
right.
Every pre-existing non-conforming use should go through a transparent process of noticing and a public hearing and the opportunity for the residents who are going to be affected to weigh in, instead of doing this all in the secret and then a property owner walks in and waves a C of O. That should be the cornerstone of this legislation.
Well, that's an ongoing problem that will be before any board if that's not fixed.
Yeah.
Well, so I think you have to change the code about pre-existing non-conforming uses, as I see it.
Well,
transparent process for establishing them. Right now, it's done in the back. I hate to say it's done in a back room.
Yes.
And the bar has to be higher in the code to make it harder to change things. The bar is very low now, in my opinion.
It's low. And what happens when the chief building inspector determines that it's a non-conforming use? I mean, does that interpretation still hold? Is this still valuable?
That's my point. I think that's
well, that's the thing. You would have to know that he made that interpretation somewhere, and you have 30 days to challenge it at the ZBA.
Or Janice, or constructive notice. It's not.
Or constructive notice.
Yes.
Sorry. So yeah, so you would have to know about it to some
There is
extent
an
to
opportunity to challenge it in front of the ZBA, either at the time it was made or upon the neighbors first finding out about it.
Right.
Typically, the building inspector relies upon affidavits to make that determination. But I appreciate the comments in that perhaps that should first start with the ZBA.
I think that would be a great recommendation for you to make to the planning board. I mean, to the town board. Like you might be able, they might have that in their purview, but that first instance of like establishing that use may be still something the ZBA should be doing.
Put it in there.
Yeah, I mean, for example, what the code that we have, right, 330 and 167 clearly states that the Board of Appeals shall make a determination that such change will be beneficial to the general neighborhood. That's one of the standards.
But it's so vague.
Well, it's still the same standard. It's just a different board looking at it. I have to tell you, like, there's not much, it's still going to say that same thing. but it does then say, we are considering, adding some language there that would talk about it's let's say the town board approves a new non-conforming use, that new non-conforming use is still subject to those abandonment provisions, which is an important part to remember, that a use may become abandoned at some point, and then you don't have those same rights, if I'm saying that correctly.
But Janice, in all the years that I've been on the board, and Dennis, you can back this up, the abandonment is a big loophole. We had something right here on the turnpike. It was a restaurant club, and it was shuttered for 2-3 years. And we tried to say, well, you've lost your non-conforming rights. Oh no, we have coffee in there from time to time. We meet in there. Well, how do you disprove that? And then that completely gives them, reestablishes their pre-existing right, non-conforming right. So there are just so many loopholes. We'll never get rid of the non-conforming uses in the town.
Perhaps, but you can start somewhere, at least in the sense that someone is oversight, and a neighborhood can say, this is a nuisance, or, this is something that's been there for 30 years and we never even notice it, and it's fine, but you don't know if it's a nuisance or not, which is the real purpose of zoning, unless the public has a chance to, or an opportunity to weigh in, which they do in both instances, town board or ZBA. But I guess the town board is just more feeling that they're more versed in the overall objectives for the town versus just very site specific or neighborhood specific.
Can we talk a little bit about here, since everybody is here? Suppose this became a use variance. This is not a crazy idea. How would it work?
What use?
Then that's not this provision. It's under ZBA regular, the ZBA section.
Yeah.
And it goes by, the definition of a use variance. This is one non-conforming use to another, not I'm a conforming use, or I have a zoning that doesn't allow this use whatsoever, and I want to use variance in the first place.
Well,
right, Kathleen, does that make sense, what I just said?
So maybe we
does, but you could also, you could frame it as a use variance. You could make it, I would understand it as that.
Madam Chair, you just have to be careful with the use variance and the area variance, because we are preempted by New York State town law in what can be deemed a use variance and an area variance and what those standards are. So we'd have to look into.
I know they're pretty high bar.
Use variance is certainly a high bar, without a doubt.
Does the town board not have enough to do?
So
they have plenty to do, but they just want to feel that they are responsible when people say this was nothing and now they're proposing X, Y, and Z, and that's, they want to turn to their elected officials. They want to be able to come to them and say yes or no to this, and they feel that it's a zone change to them.
So maybe what we have to do, is to recommend to the town board in part of this legislation that before we go forward with this, we have to look at how it's decided, how we get to a non-conforming, which is what Dennis's point and Jackie's point is. How do we get that determination that it's non-conforming? How do we get that determination that it's been abandoned or not? Get some better regulations for that and figure out where that's supposed to be. And if in essence it is a zone change, then it goes to the town board, which controls it. But perhaps I'm seeing this threshold questions here that have to be addressed, which is how are we defining non-conforming and whether that non-conforming has been abandoned. So I think maybe
and I would add to that. I would add to it that there have to be some additional standards.
Yes.
So that the bar is higher.
Such as what standards would you recommend?
The community, the impacting the community, a major.
Well, it says it determines such change will be beneficial to the general neighborhood.
Okay, maybe we have to add some language to that to tighten it up. What's beneficial? What, Dennis?
Talk about the change of the use or the establishment of pre-existing use?
Well, your recommendations so far are about, keeping it nonpartisan, determinations for the nonconformity and abandonment in the first place.
Yeah.
And then you recommend adding additional standards
to
this law for, I don't know who, for the ZBA or the town board.
Well, let's just say if the ZBA had stricter, more precise standards for one conforming use to another, we might be in a better place. We might be able to eliminate some of these pre-existing non-conforming uses, but maybe the standards are too vague, they're too broad, they're not enough.
I keep going back to what the law says, and the first threshold question is it a non-conforming use?
Right.
And then the second threshold question, the next question is, was that non-conforming use abandoned? Now, if you have a non-conforming use that hasn't been abandoned, then you go to the other issues of what is now projected. That's where, is it a zoning change, or is it truly to another non-conforming use? For example, if it was a gas station before and it was non-conforming, I'm just using that as an example.
Well, that means it existed before code.
Yes.
That's what non-conforming means.
Correct. And now he wants to, the landowner wants to just store cars. That might be a similar non-conforming use. Do you see what I'm trying to just use an example? Versus going from a non-conforming use of a gas station or a nursery to 120 unit condominium with the rec center. That to me is more of a zone change. So what I'm trying to do is get back to the threshold questions of nonconformity. Why did it arise? It arose because we changed the code, okay, on properties that were owned and had C of Os or are being used for uses before the code came on. So now we're looking at those nonconformities. You've got to see if the nonconformity still exists. And then the next step is to determine whether the nonconformity was abandoned. And if it wasn't abandoned and you still have a nonconformity, then you get to the next question. Does the new project, whatever it is, that the landowner, is that something that is, and then you have your, if it's truly a zone change, then it should go to the town board. If it's not a zone change, then maybe it can stay with the ZBA, or maybe Dennis is right, it should come to us.
So Robin, maybe you're onto something. Maybe the types of uses, go back to your analogy of the gas station.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a gas station and I'm changing it over to storage of cars.
Correct.
Or a transmission shop.
Correct.
Those are groups, as opposed to it's a gas station, now I want to build condos.
That's the
So you're
point.
saying some kind of parity between uses.
But that's what the law, the underlying reasoning behind non-conforming uses was to give the landowner what his expectation was. And Kathleen, please jump in and correct me if I'm wrong on a legal basis. But I thought that the concept here was to protect the landowner who bought a piece of property that was non-conforming with the understanding that he can keep that non-conformity for a while, okay? Now it's been deemed, and so he can go, because I think some of the Court of Appeals cases in New York say that you can change within a certain zone, the certain types of things of the non-conformity.
Sometimes that's more related to like sand mining, and you're talking about Syracuse aggregates.
Yes.
I think there's two things to note. One is you're right. These are either pre-existing, as in prior to the inception of zoning, or they're the result of an upzone, right?
Yes.
You could have a parcel that was legally used, and then there was an upzone or a change of zone that the town board undertook that deemed you non-conforming. The other, I think, goal tied to the change from one non-conforming use to the other as it exists now was that oftentimes when uses start to cease, they can become dilapidated and unsightly and a blight. And so it was a measure to try and give that property owner another use while taking, perhaps not taking it all the way conforming, taking it a little bit more conforming and removing the blight that it was introducing into the neighborhood because it was starting to dilapidate, which of course begs the question of, is it abandoned? And that's going to really depend on the facts of every case. So there's a lot to consider.
That's why I'm saying maybe what we have to do is look at the thresholds, go step by step on the thresholds. And if it is an elephant, if you're really truly developing an elephant, let's call it, then make it a zoning change. If it is a nonconformity within reason of, so that the landowner is protected, like my example of going from, and I'm just making this up, from a gas station to a storage of cars. You know what I mean?
But that's subjective.
Conformity, it's a nonconformity that still doesn't change the character.
That's subjective.
You're saying instead of choosing from the gamut of any nonconforming use out there, that you could choose anything, and that's why the town board is saying this sounds like a zone change. You're saying it has to have some nexus or relationship, but it's moving toward conformity.
Correct.
And then it could stay with the ZBA, but if it was really beyond the threshold of anything anybody reasonably could say, well, this is a move from like one thing to a little more conforming, then, you know, it belongs with the town board as a compromise, perhaps.
I think a lot of what you're saying, Robin, I would take it well, but it's subjective. Who's going to say that a garage and a storage of cars is that there's a nexus?
All I'm saying is if you're going from a garage, you're going from a nursery to a 120 condo unit, that's a zoning change. That is clearly a zoning change in my book. Okay,
well, based on standards. I mean, again, we have to have some standards by which to measure something.
Well,
otherwise, what Glorian is trying to get in here.
Yeah. What about the first thing, if you're in a non-conforming situation and that doesn't work anymore, reverting to what the current zoning is? You should have to prove that that's not appropriate or feasible. So let's use this to Hecky. He can build 6 houses there.
Members, I don't think that you should be discussing active applications, if I may.
Okay.
I don't either. I think we should keep it to a hypothetical.
That's why I use the gas station.
Yeah. So, but maybe if you're not conforming, it doesn't work now. Your first thing to do is to bring it into conformity. And
that's done
yeah, but like, let's do one that you did. You can talk about something that already happened, which is.
Wait a second. That means you have to have a C of O, right? To bring it into conformity, you have to have a C of O. Now, how many ways can you get a C of O? You can get it from the building inspector. You can get it by applying, and going through the steps. But that's one of the requirements. According to the code, according to 330-167, to grant a certificate of occupancy for a change in a non-conforming use, provided that the Board of Appeals shall have made a determination that such change will be beneficial to the general neighborhood.
Yeah, what I'm saying is if you want to go from one non-conforming to another, the first hurdle you should have to pass is that why can't you make it conforming?
Well, and that's what I was going to say. Like in some cases, like one of the ones you looked at was the ponds. And that was an active like marine construction site that then became condos. So, at some point the value, there's that use variance problem that gets involved here where it's more valuable to remain as a sand mine or a construction marine contractor or whatever they were before. And so in order to get them to do residential, they weren't going to just do like 3 lots or whatever the zoning allowed, which was much less than the multifamily component. And that's where that starts to get a slippery slope because those valuations start to come into
But that's,
play, I think.
but that's where you should have in the code a 50% or less expansion.
We do have that in the code.
But I thought that was only for, is that for subdivision or for site plan?
No, that's for pre-existing expansions.
That's for non-conforming uses.
Non-conforming. Okay, so you can't go from the example that you just gave to what was your example?
Well, I was just saying that you had like almost like a sand mine, but it wasn't. It was a contractor, or whatever they were, Rambo, that they went from that to multifamily condominiums. And the question was, why can't they just be conforming? Why can't they just do a conforming use? And that's where all this starts to, obviously we want them to move toward conformity always, but in some cases that's that judgment call, and that's that valuation of it's more profitable or whatever to a landowner to stay the way they are than to just be conforming. We can't just take away that whatever they had before. They're grandfathered in, they're allowed to have it. So that we can't just say, no, you have to just be conforming. So the whole point of this code was to try to move, like you said earlier, and Robin mentioned, it's to move toward conformity, hopefully, with each pre-existing non-conforming use going to another. It's not to just pick from any other one that's just as obnoxious or just as, threatening to a community. That's not the intent of it.
But that's,
and I think when they say, well, it's residential, but many communities don't want multifamily residential in that way, or don't find that to be harmonious or within keeping with what the current land use patterns are. So
I don't think you have to be a genius to figure out a non-conforming use going to another non-conforming use that is exponentially larger, bigger, more intense use of the land. I mean, that is not reducing a non-conformity. It just isn't. So if the intent of the pre-existing non-conforming code is to reduce non-conforming properties and to eventually do away with them, as the nightclub issue was proposed, then our code is going in just the opposite direction.
Madam Chair, you can recommend that you get rid of this step.
That's what I said, get rid of the whole.
Not all towns have this. Some villages do.
Yeah.
So if that's the will of the board, your referral can say, we don't think that this opportunity or measure should be in the code anymore. I opened up by saying that I think the whole pre-existing non-conforming code should be abandoned. However, I'm sure that there would be legislation on that.
Oftentimes,
litigation, not legislation.
Oftentimes, Jackie, it's a tool to really enhance a use. For instance, you have a noisy nightclub. Remember the Waterside nightclub down on Noyak Road? Loud, noisy, boisterous nightclub that was a pre-existing non-conforming use, and they came forward. They said, "Look, we want to put some condos up here," and the community came out in strong support of it because the nightclub was a blight. It was a problem for the community. That's why that provision should not be eliminated. It should be strengthened in the appropriate manner with safeguards and standards.
Standards, some really good standards.
Janice hit on touched on one of the most important issues is establishing these pre-existing uses in the first place. They should not be issued by the building inspector. They should only be issued if you just subject those CBOs to ZBA should be the one issuing them. Why? Because you'll have noticing, you'll have evidence, and most importantly, you'll have the ability right then and there for the community or a neighbor to challenge that zoning board, that ZBA decision. So
I'm sure there's a list can be drawn up of all the pre-existing properties, right? By a certain date.
They should be granted by the ZBA.
In the computer, you could put in properties before.
Well, I mean, we just require like any, to memorialize some kind of use, or I don't know that they're going to go for amortizing anything, but
no,
it would be like the nightclubs had an amortization component.
But I mean, first of to try to get just a baseline, are we talking about 300 properties in Southampton that are?
It's
pretty-
really hard to tell because you've got making them come and establish that use is helpful, I think. And so if you're all on board with at least saying that, I could put that as one of your recommendations.
I think you need a baseline always with something. What are we looking at here? Are we looking at a dozen properties, 200, 300?
Well, you just don't know. Somebody may just happily be their non-conforming use from forever and never come in. So why would we want to bother them? Like, they're just fine. They're not expanding. They're operating as they always did. And there should be no reason to haul them in to do anything. It's the people who are seeking something have to first make a showing or demonstrate that this use was not abandoned or, you know, is an active use on the property.
Because it's very interesting. The statute actually says in section B, subsection C, there shall be no change in the nature or character of such non-conforming use or of such building or structure. So I think there was some intent there to, if you're going to keep the non-conformity, that you were keeping it in the nature or structure of what the nonconformity was at the time. I don't think the intent was to go in and completely throw off, say, okay, we'll go to another nonconforming use, which was really a zoning change.
Well, right. And I got to say, you know, in my own experience, it's been, you know, oh, you need a zone change for this. You need a zone change for that. Well, I'll just go to the ZBA and ask for one nonconforming or not.
Exactly.
You know, it isn't like seen as a lesser challenge to someone to go in that direction versus to come in front of the town board, which is quite, you know, that I would say argue that the town board is very much scrutinizing these applications and making sure that the community is satisfied. So I wouldn't take it away from them, their ability to scrutinize an application.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe Robin's idea was a workable compromise. In other words, separate those applications where the one use is going to a similar use, like the gas station to the car storage, that should stay with the ZBA. But if the gas station wants to go to condos, then that elevates it. That's a different application. And that's, you know, that I would support that as a compromise, segregate those two types of applications.
And I think that would go into the nature of what the statute was to do, was to protect the landowner who bought a property with an expectation of use.
Bravo. You did it.
Yeah, but then you need another new board to decide what kind of applications go to which board.
Well, you're suggesting you put that in the code as a standard, so someone can objectively say, is this within at least the same category of uses, or there's some parity here that someone can make a finding and say, this is less non-conforming than the other one.
I'd feel comfortable with building inspector making that determination. It's the same use group, automotive to automotive, agriculture to agriculture, as opposed to automotive to residential. The building inspector can easily make that, and routinely does.
Right. I think, and if he's arbitrary and capricious on that, he deserves a lawsuit on that one. So
Right.
if he's completely, and the statute and the underlying reasoning behind nonconformity and protecting nonconformity, it says it right there. I mean, that was where the cases have upheld. So I don't think we're going outside, and I think Dennis, I think we got it.
Yeah, you got it.
Well, I think we all got it.
We all got it.
You know, I think
All right,
we
so
all spent some time here.
I can write this up. I think I need to type it up and you see it again, so that
Yeah.
way you're
Can you bring
satisfied
it
with the
up?
language there. But I think I've got a bunch of comments that you'd like to make, and I'll type it into a document that you can all look at and wordsmith together. And I'll come back on the next agenda for that. Does that sound good?
I think Jackie's idea also of maybe looking at, if we can't fix it,
eliminate it
because it is not, I think that should go in there as an option too.
Yeah, it is being used.
I'm sorry. Now, when you say if you can't fix it, eliminate it, you mean the code itself?
Yes.
Okay.
It is currently being used as a tool, as an end run.
Okay.
I think that option should be.
Careful, that'll come back to bite you. It's like the nightclub operator. Well, I have this noisy, noxious nightclub. I'd love to change it, but I can't.
Well, they can go to the town board and get a use variance.
No.
No, change of zone. The ZBA is still a use variance. You could come in and say, I have this residential property over here and I have no use and I want a use variance, and you wouldn't really have much of a case there. You have to kind of have an established use in order to ask for a use variance, which is very similar to this, but this is just like a little less.
Well, you see, the bar for a use variance is how we never see use variances. The ZBA does not give out use variances. And what I'm saying.
Most people don't really apply for them because they have this provision instead.
Well, that's it. So maybe what I said before is that we need to look at this like we look at a use variance, make it as difficult to get going from one to the other. Make it difficult so that it's not just a walk in the park where you can come in.
And Kathleen can confirm that is the only variance that's prescribed by state law. There's specific state statutory guidelines that have to come and be met for a use variance to be granted. That's why a lot of people don't go down that avenue.
Yeah,
Well, it says the state statutes that delegate to local governments the authority to adopt zoning regulations implicitly authorize local legislatures to adopt reasonable measures to protect legitimate and investment expectations of owners of developed land. There is no express reference, however, in these authorizing statutes to the authority of local legislatures to allow the continuation of non-conforming uses. It's not required.
One of the thresholds in your use variance that is so difficult for applicants to overcome is the showing that they cannot get a reasonable return on their property. And different from an area variance, an area variance, you don't have to prove all 5 parts of your 5-part test. You can prove 3 of your 5, right? Mm-hmm. Oftentimes it's a self-created hardship. That's not proven, but they still get the variance.
Right.
However, when you have a use variance, you do have to prove all 4 prongs. And that prong, the financial issue, is usually the hardest for applicants to overcome, particularly in the town of Southampton, where your real estate is so lucrative.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
All right, so I'll add that comment. You know, if you really can't fix it to your satisfaction, then you should just eliminate it. I'll also add the comment, you know, that perhaps it's not the town board. Maybe it's ZBA establishes the use. Planning board reviews the use, and if the use is too far gone, then the town board reviews it as a zone change. Like it's like a kind of, you know, but that may be onerous for somebody trying to do something.
And also please include my comment about pattern it after a use variance.
Okay. I'm sure we'll need to amend it, but I will do my best to add something, put something together, and, you know.
Well, it's been a great conversation.
After a very long meeting.
Sorry.
But I mean, it's what planning is about, and, you know, and
we're all frustrated in different ways.
Of course we're frustrated. I mean, particularly when the code says one thing and a board acts in a particular way, it's really rough to keep your eye on what we're really supposed to be doing here, which is representing the community and trying to protect the environment.
But I think it's really good that the subject matter has been open for discussion.
Absolutely.
And the determination is made.
Absolutely.
We've got to make changes.
Right. And I know that the land use attorneys are pushing against this, and the Business Alliance is pushing against it. I mean, they sent out a public letter to oppose it. So I don't know how the public hearing went, Janice. Was it yesterday?
I mean, there was testimony for and against, I would say, fairly. There was some good points made, some stuff that may result in some revisions. That's why I want to get you the comments quickly, so that way you can get them to the town board before they act. And, you know, one worthy comment that I found was that, you know, they were, you know, that how does this relate to an abandonment provision, you know, and things along those lines, because that abandonment part of this is important. So, the supervisor who's sponsoring the legislation is considering those changes right now. So I'll get this report finalized and back to you so that you can provide it to them. And, I'll send it to you on email as a draft, and then you can vote on it next time as a final resolution.
That would be great.
Okay, great.
Great conversation.
Thanks, Janice. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Wow, it was nice. Should do it more often.
Yeah.
Dennis and I have a whole folder of code changes.
Yes,
We've
yeah.
got
We,
rid of
we hope
the-
to, once we get out of kind of this COVID nightmare, like we hope to make more routine, amendments as they come up.
Well, we've seen a lot of them, and then some of them are just small changes, just small changes. Like
Yes, I
like-
have my own
like
running
a pond
list.
is not considered a structure, right? A pond, but a
Oh,
wall
yes, I know. Claire has given me all of those.
No,
Hi, Claire.
it doesn't make any sense. So,
Okay.
all
Well,
right.
thanks again. Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye.
So, motion to adjourn
Motion.
by Dennis, second by Gloria. All in favor.
Bye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in
You
favor.
guys, next week, 2 weeks.
See you in
weeks.
2 weeks, everybody.
2 weeks. Yes, and Craig
Lanato.
Donato will be with us. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.